I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. Shout out to everyone watching on Rockfin, Twitter, Rumble, and here as well. What is up, guys? Yes, I do. Thank you. Leroy said new setup. Yes. And I know the comments cover my mouth. I'm sorry. I'll figure that out at some point. But yeah, new setup. I changed some things around. It was time for a change. I don't know about you guys, but I was tired of looking at those brown blinds in the background. At least I was. And I think some of you might have been too, but maybe just didn't want to let me know. So I did rotate things around up in here. And so now you don't have to look at those dreaded blinds anymore. And my sister actually helped me out with a couple of things over the weekend to make things look a little bit better in here. I got a little chalkboard now, and I'll tell you guys, I'm supposed to have a guest tonight. So I just wrote welcome on there tonight. But going forward, different nights when I'm live, I'm going to have a different theme written up on that chalkboard, whether it's Taco Tuesday or something like that. Just something a little bit different to mix things up. So first and foremost, if you haven't had a chance to do so, go ahead and answer that poll question. So I'm excited to see what your responses are there. Do you think that Kamala Harris's new plan for Black men is going to change things for her with Black supporters? Let me know. I peeked at it for a little bit before I got up in here, but let me know what you are thinking about that, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to go to some of the comments. Dr. Shiva is supposed to be here. Let me just double check on that really quick. See. Okay, there he is. Okay, just double checking. Okay. All righty. We'll go ahead and get started. All right, Dr. Shiva, whenever you're ready, just let me know. If you can give me a thumbs up. Okay, great. All right, guys, my special guest tonight is Dr. Shiva. He is running for president for 2024 as an independent. You've seen him on here before. Welcome back, Dr. Shiva. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Sabby?
I'm good. I'm good. It's getting down to the wire, so I'm interested to hear a little bit more about your campaign. I do want to start off with this. So I heard that you are on the ballot in Massachusetts, so I want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, in every state, your listeners may know, Sabby, they make it, they have an onerous task in every state that you have to do certain statutory requirements, right, to get on the ballot. For example, in California, you have to get 300,000 signatures to get on the ballot, right? But the reality is, or you can get as a write-in, but even in California, you have to submit 108 electors. So I think it's very, very important to people to understand how, I would say 95% of people don't even understand on November 5th, we're not voting for the president.
What do you mean by that?
It's a good, yeah. So so on November 5th, you are voting for the office of senator, office of House of Representatives. But when it comes to the president, this is something that is very easy to get forgotten because they don't teach it in civics. I would say even most judges and a lot of lawyers don't even know this. It's unfortunate. And we've learned this from the lawsuits we've had to file, right? So when you run for president, according to the 12th Amendment, right, the way the United States was structured was there was always this deep conflict between how much rights should the states have versus the federal government, right? So when the 13 colonies came together, they created this thing called the United States government. Prior to that, the states, the colonies had their own governance systems, right? They had the judiciary, they had their own state legislative assemblies, and they also had their own governor, right? But when they decided to come together, they created this thing called the United States government. And as a part of creating that United States government, each of these states would get representation, right? They would get House of Representatives, which was a direct function of what was your population. So Massachusetts, I believe we get what? I think 9, right? It's roughly about 700, 800, every 700, 800,000 people, we get 1 House of Representatives, right? So we get 9, plus we get 2 senators. So those 2 people from each state were sent to the legislature at the federal government. And then they also had something else called the office of the president, right? Now the president, they didn't want a king to be created, right? So they didn't want everyone by popular vote selecting a king. So this was a big fight between Hamilton and Madison, and they decided we're going to have electors. So in every state, you're not electing the president of the United States, you're electing a group of electors. So for example, in Massachusetts, you could have your electors, I could have mine. So how many electors are there? There's typically the same number as a number of House of Representatives plus the 2 senators. So in Massachusetts, it's 11, okay? So 11 electors come together, independent citizens who have to be resident of Massachusetts. Typically, they have certain qualifications, resident, maybe 25 years of age. The state legislature sets those requirements. And those electors say, hey, we want Sabby to be our candidate for president. In the event our slate wins the office of elector election, which is on November 5th. So you may have your electors, 11 people. I have my electors. Jason here can have his electors. So that means there are 3 potential pledge candidates running. But who is running for the office, Sabby, is not me or you or Jason. It's not Donald Trump, Kamala Harris running for president, or Dr. Shiva. It is the electors who have said that if we get elected this slate, then on December 17th, in every state, we will decide that we're going to let's say the electors of Kamala Harris get elected, they're going to vote for Kamala Harris, okay, on December 17th. So that's why they were so easily able to switch Biden with Harris, because the reality is those electors can choose whoever they want as their pledge candidate in the future, right? So in every state, you're not voting for Kamala Harris or Donald Trump or Dr. Shiva. You're voting for the slate of electors who have said at some point in the future, December 17th, which is always the Wednesday after the second Monday in December, the legislature meets and they count the votes. Oh, Dr. Shiva got 50% of the votes, his electors win. Then they come to the legislature and they said, we're going to vote for Dr. Shiva. But they don't have to, they could switch. There's a thing called faithless electors. Anyway, the reason I'm sharing this with you is that in Massachusetts, we had to get a set of electors who said they're going to pledge to vote for Dr. Shiva if that slate is elected. Now, up until 1900, do you know they would list all the names of the electors? So if you had 11, I had 11, I had 11, on the Massachusetts ballot would appear 33 names, and you could mix and match. Okay, so this got a little bit difficult. So then they said, okay, the electors are going to be represented by the name of the pledged candidate, Dr. Shiva or Sabby or Jason, you see? So it's very important to understand that on November 5th, you're not voting for the president. You're voting. So if you look at the Massachusetts ballot, it says electors for president and vice president. Okay, so why is this important? So in Massachusetts, those electors, in order for them to get on the ballot, they just go under my name, Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. That's just a label. They had to go get 10,000 bona fide signatures. They had to fill out a bunch of paperwork proving that they were Massachusetts residents, etc., to be the slate of 11 electors. You would have had to do the same thing, Sabby. Now, in Massachusetts, not only do you have to collect 10,000 signatures, but they have to get certified. Typically, they throw away half of them. So we had to get 20,000 signatures, Sabby, in 10 days, and we pulled it off. And then you have to take those signatures and you have to send it to each of the 350 individual towns. So imagine the operation we had to run, running around, and then the towns look up everyone's names, and then they say, oh yeah, it's a real name. Then you have to pick those back up, papers, and then you have to submit it to whatever Ashburton Place in Boston. So Massachusetts is the most difficult state to get on the ballot. And the reason is because you have this two-tier process. In other states, you just collect the signatures and you just submit to the Secretary of State. And then you pray that you get enough signatures, okay? So we have now built a national organization, which none of these people thought we would ever do.
Oh,
Kennedy.
Dr. Shiva, I think your microphone is popping.
Oh, okay, hold on. How's that? Is that better? Hold on. How's that?
Say something.
Test 1 2, test 1 2.
Yeah, I think it sounds like static.
I'm not sure what to say. Let me try this.
Are you using a plug-in mic or the computer mic?
I'm on a mic that I normally use. How's that? Is that better? Hold on. Let me see if the mic is set properly. Let me just make sure I'm on the right mic. That's why. Test, test. Is that better?
Yay. That works.
Sabby, is that better?
Yep.
Hello?
I can hear you.
Okay. Let me set it so I can hear you on the speaker. Huh.
Can you hear me now?
1 second.
Okay.
For some reason, I'm not able to hear you now. Say something, Sabby.
Test, test.
I can't hear you audio. That's weird. Is your mic off? Huh.
Can you hear me now?
Go back to this. Can you say something, Sabby?
Test, test.
How's it now? You can't hear me that well, right?
I can hear you fine.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, it may pop again because, hold on, let me just. Yeah, I'm gonna have to use that mic. Sorry about that. Is that okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're fine now.
Okay. All right. So anyway, sorry about that. So anyway, the reason I was sharing that was, we moved from our Senate campaign to building a national organization for our movement for truth, freedom, health. So this required us in every state to have leaders. And typically people raise Kennedy raised $20 million. God knows what he did with that. Okay. Other people raise a ton of money because they typically go hire, Sabby, signature collectors, professional people who they pay to collect signatures. Everything we did was driven bottoms up by volunteers. So you can imagine the Herculean effort we had to do. We had to get volunteers, all working people, electricians, plumbers, engineers, mothers, who went in the rain and snow and collected signatures. So in Utah, we had to collect around 2,000 signatures in the rain and sleet and snow. We were the first ones on the ballot. In Minnesota, we had to collect 5,000 signatures. Okay. And in every state, you have to get electors. In the states that we weren't able to get listed on the ballot, you can still do what's called a write-in. But even for a write-in, it's not simply you just get the write-in. You also have to go get electors, right? Because in order for your votes to be counted. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very well familiar with that. I remember when I had this conversation with Dr. West when he was deciding to run as an independent. This was something I did try to forewarn him about.
It's a Herculean effort. It's a Herculean effort. So remember, one of the things I'm challenging, not only do we have to build that, but I'm not I don't want to say I'm not natural born. The question is, I was born in India. Okay. The original Constitution says 3 qualifications to hold the office of president, to enter the office of president, right? And that was, you have to be 35 years of age. You have to be, I think, a resident of the United States for 14 years, and you have to be, quote unquote, natural born, which is never defined. Okay. Now, many people have argued that the 14th Amendment abrogated that, which means canceled it out, because after the Civil War, when we freed the slaves and it said everyone's equal, whether you're natural born or whether you're a naturalized citizen, which is written in the 14th Amendment. The 19th Amendment applied the 14th Amendment to women. That's why women were able to run for office, or in fact, hold the office. Kamala Harris was able to run as a woman because of the 19th Amendment. All right. So everyone has said, oh, you can't run for office because you're not natural born. Well, first of all, natural born is never defined. It's not defined.
But you can look up the definition of natural born. I looked it up.
It's not defined. The Supreme Court has not defined it. It's a very important thing to understand. So, for example, Dr.
Shiva, I looked this up. Natural born means you have to be born in the United States.
Nope, that's not true. Let me explain. You could go. It's not true. You could go right now. You could go, and you have to listen to this, because you could go adopt 5 kids in India right now and bring them here, and they're considered natural born. Did you know that? And they could run for. Did you know that?
I haven't seen that. What I have seen is, I know that Cenk Uygur went through this same process.
Yeah, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He copied his lawsuit from mine. Natural born is never defined. The Marquis de Lafayette was made a natural born citizen by the legislature, even though he was born in France, and all of his heirs. The Supreme Court has never defined natural born. So people think the definition that you have to be born here, but Elon Musk could go to all over Europe, have a bunch of kids, not born here. They're considered natural born. So very important to understand. So this is a mistake. We've had to educate lots and lots of people. People think natural born means being born on the US soil. It's not true. But more importantly, people confuse running for president with holding the office and being president. Roger Calero was put on 21 states ballots, even though he was a Nicaraguan citizen, not born in the United States, for president twice, 2004 and 2008. So all of these facts people don't know. And so anyone can run for the office of president. Very important to understand this, Sabby.
Well, I'm well aware. I haven't seen anything that says you can't run. You can still run. But what I have seen where it says that you cannot hold the office of president. So there's a difference between running and holding that office of president.
Yeah, so let's discuss that. It's a very, very important discussion. Now we're getting to the heart of things. There's 3 things. There's running for the office, being elected for the office, and then holding the office. So for example, in a federal office, Joe Biden, when he ran, he was 29. You're supposed to be 30 years old to hold a Senate office, right? So he ran and he got elected. And then when it went to Congress, because Congress is ultimately the one that affirms whether you can hold the office. And this was why the Trump versus Anderson ruling was so important in March of 2024. So the 14th Amendment, for example, says, Section 3 says, if you are involved in an insurrection, you cannot hold the office of president. Okay? Very important ruling. Left and right came down on this. Now, in Colorado, the Supreme Court of Colorado, as it went up, they said Trump is an insurrectionist, and they threw him off the ballot. Supreme Court swooped in. They said, whoa, 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 you can't do this. Because the qualifications for holding an office are different than running for the office. So in a 9-0 decision, Democrats and Republicans on that court said you cannot do this. Only Congress can decide. Now, why is this important? Because the founders of the United States knew that there would be things that would come bottoms up. So for example, maybe it's told that a black person could not be president. But let's say people said, no, we want that person to run for president, or that brown-skinned person to run. Let's say even during slavery. In fact, even prior to 1920, 1917, women are given the right to vote. There were many women who ran for the office of president, even though you couldn't hold the office. So people ran, and this became part of a movement. And the founders did not want bloody revolutions. So they wanted people bottoms up to be able to run, First Amendment right. And let's say in 1917 or 1900, let's say a woman ran and she got elected. Now Congress would have to be faced with this very interesting thing. Let's say that woman actually got 290 electoral votes. Congress would have to make a decision. Wait a minute, the Constitution says you can't hold the office, it's only for he. Congress would then have a discussion. 2/3 of it would meet, and they would have to decide, yes, we're going to let her hold it because the people want it. So that's why, so Senk and even Hassan, this was all theory for them. I'm the first one to actually run and get electoral people and challenge this. So this is what's historic about this. So we have now gotten on the ballot in 13 states, officially listed. And in 4 of those states, they've gone into litigation. So in New Jersey, we got on the ballot.
Your mic is popping really bad. I'm sorry.
Hold on.
It was fine a minute ago, but
you know what I got to do? What's really weird is we just switched to Firefox. There's something weird in Firefox. I cannot set the mic of your mic. So what I'm going to do is I can set it to the mic, and then I have to switch it back so I can hear you. Is that all right? You follow what I'm saying?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So unfortunately, I'm going to do this.
It's probably best that you
you're going to be able to hear me now without any issues. And then when just raise your hand, and I'm going to have to switch it to speaker. Is that all right? Okay. So yeah. So the most important thing, historic thing, is I'm the first candidate ever in the history of the United States to be on the ballot listed in not one state, but 13 states, even though I'm a quote unquote a naturalized citizen. The time that this occurred before is 2004 and 8, a guy called Roger Calero. He was not even born in the United States. He was not even a naturalized citizen. He was a Nicaraguan citizen. I think he ran under the Socialist Workers Party. And he was on the ballot, including in New Jersey, including in Massachusetts, in 2004 and 8. Okay. But Claire only got like 500 votes. Now in New Jersey, we got on the ballot. We were listed on and we got listed on the ballot, put on the ballot. Kamala Harris's New Jersey Democratic Party challenged that. That was on, when was that, Jason? September. So that went into a lawsuit. Okay. We argued, look, and it's a very virgin area of law, actually. It's called premature adjudication and enforcement. So there, the office is, you rightfully said, to hold the office of president, right? Which is what the Constitution says. But the Constitution says anyone can run for an office. So the judge said, oh, because you cannot hold the office, we're going to make you ineligible to run. And he kicked off the electors. It's very interesting. So he violated 2 things. First of all, I'm in Massachusetts. This is why I gave you that preamble. The electors are the ones who are running for the office. We have 14 electors, 9 women, 4 men, 5 men who are running for the office. So I then appealed that lawsuit, went up to the New Jersey Supreme Court, and now it's gone up to the Supreme Court of the United States. Let me bring that back. Hold on one second, Sabby.
There you go. Go ahead.
Okay. I think that I really do want to get to policy because I do have a limited amount of time. So I do just want to make sure we can get to some of the policy, if that's okay.
Yeah, let me just finish this last piece just to summarize it. The reason I shared that is, so there are 2 lawsuits going on. One of them has gone out of the United States Supreme Court on this very specific issue of our naturalized citizens, second-class citizens, and does it violate equal protection? That's one. It's going to be a very interesting case if the Supreme Court takes it. Independent of that, Sabby, the electors have also filed a lawsuit saying, wait a minute, Dr. Shiva, you may think may be ineligible to hold the office, but we're the ones running for the office. You see, so this is bringing up a very fundamental thing in the Electoral College. So that's, and this has occurred in 4 states now, so we'll see how that gets adjudicated. But yeah, so I just wanted to give you that background. Sorry, it's probably popping again, but if you want to, yeah, I think so. If you want to ask, I don't know where you want me to start. You want me to start with foreign policy, economic, education?
Well, I have one in particular that I do want to go to. Let me just share over here 1 second. So I guess with me, the question that I have, particularly under abortion and reproductive health. One of the things it says here, it says Dr. Shiva believes in the biological fact that life begins at conception, period. Life begins when a sperm and ovum meet. Anyone who says you are not killing a baby by aborting it is simply wrong based on science. So I want to hear a little bit about this because obviously, there are a lot of people that are upset at this point in time because of, the overturn of Roe v. Wade. So I want to hear a little bit more about your position on abortion.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you a position you probably don't hear. So my view is that there's 2 issues here, right? The definition of life and then states' rights versus federal rights. So I think this is a issue that should be left up to the states, which is where it rightfully should be held. The second issue is, if you think about it, people have branded one group as pro-life and the other people as pro-choice, right? On pro-life, there's enough papers written on this. There's probably about 100 biologists. There is a life, and a life is being killed, period. There's no question about that. So the issue, therefore, is that to argue, the right wing argues that you're killing something and we're pro-life. The problem with the right wing argument is they seem only to care about life in the womb, but they don't seem to care about what happens when the baby comes out of the womb. People are in different economic conditions, right? They don't seem to take any of that into account. They just want that baby to have the woman to have the baby. That's it. But when the baby comes out, they don't care the economic conditions that woman's growing up in. Does she have the same equal rights as somebody else? The decisions that she's going to have to live with. Is the baby going to get organic food? The rich kid gets organic food. The poor kid's going to get GMO infested, pesticides. So it seems like the right wing has narrowed this concept of pro-life, which life exists, let's say for 80, 90 years, to this 9-month period. And during that 9-month period, they want the woman to have the baby under any circumstances, force the woman to have it. And obviously wealthy women, bougie women have a lot more, capabilities because they can fly off to another country. They can do this, and they have much more flexibility. So I think when I look at it from the entire life of that child. On the pro-choice side, I think what's also happened there from the life side, the same people who are into pro-choice were really not into pro-choice about wearing masks or the vaccine mandates, which was quite interesting. In fact, it's quite interesting to watch a lot of people into the health area, Sabby, right? the yoga people and all these gurus, they force everyone to get vaccinated. So from a systems approach, I think there's some serious contradictions on both of these sides. And so I believe you should have full choice. And I do believe it should rest in the states and let the states decide. But I do believe there's a huge contradiction among the right who talk about pro-life, and many of those people support Monsanto. Many of those people do not care about income, they don't want to address the income inequality issues, which are the fundamental basis of many, many issues that take place in society. We talk about gun violence, but there's a wonderful research which was done by a woman system scientist, which clearly shows if I draw an axis by the Gini score, which is income inequality and gun violence, it's a straight line up. It's clear that where you have high levels of income inequality, you have much more gun violence. So again, the left wing tries to say it's about guns, and the right wing says it's not about guns. It's about people on, taking psychological medications and all this. So I think we need to address this issue of income inequality at a very fundamental level if we want to really talk about choice. Rich people have far more choices than poor people. It's just a reality. But in none of these discussions is there that ever discussed. So that's my position. But as a biologist, once the epithelial tissue forms, it is a life. And you can't deny that.
I think people can deny that, but I do want to go to the foreign policy really quick as well, because one of the things that I saw that you put, which I think a lot of the people that watch the show would 100% agree with, is to end all aid to Israel. And I want you to talk about that a little bit, ending all funding to Israel and why you take that position.
Yeah, there's a direct relationship from a system standpoint between foreign policy and economic policy. If you notice, Trump today just said that he wants to have a 100% tariff on countries who don't accept the United States dollar as a reserve currency, right? The United States foreign policy is directly connected to our economic policy. So the United States elites need Israel to be their aircraft carrier in the Middle East to ensure that the United States maintains reserve currency status. And I can talk more about this, because the reality is, on the left and the right, all the economic theorists right now believe in something called modern monetary theory, MMT, which says print as much money as you want. But printing as much money as you want, I forget the woman's last name, Stephanie will come to me. She's a professor. She goes, you don't worry about inflation. Just print as much money as you want, as long as you're the reserve currency. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll just let you know your mic is where it's staticky again.
So
it was fine for a minute.
Yeah. So let me go back. So this is probably, let me go back to this. Sorry about that, Sabby.
There. So we have to understand there's a direct relationship between the United States maintaining its ability to print as much money as it wants, subjugating the rest of the world, and increasing cost of living for all of us, and why Israel is a necessity for the elites who can do that in the Federal Reserve, in the Treasury, and the banks, because they're all Zionists if you look at it, okay? And it's undeniable. So the US is able to print money and force everyone to be the reserve currency, because behind the almighty dollar is no longer gold, and it's no longer petroleum. It is F-15s, F-35s, and it's aircraft carriers. And they need Israel to be able to go be their weapon conducting war, or be their tip of the spear of conducting war. And that is how reserve currency status is maintained. Now, if you look at what's going on in Gaza right now, it's a massive genocide taking place. And this goes back to the agreement that the swarm, as I call it, struck with Israel. The creation of Israel was an illegal nation that was done. Zionism is equivalent to Nazism, which is the same as Brahmanism in the Hindu system, which is believing a small set of people are better than everyone else. Now, I grew up in that caste system, where the Brahmins, most of the Indians you see here, including Vivek the fucking snake, excuse my language, okay? And most of the Indians you see here are all Brahmins. And they're the people who spit and call me the N-word in India. So the fact that my parents made it here, Sabby, is quite 1 in a trillion. And so when I went to MIT, all the Indians there were trying to figure out my last name. And I may have mentioned this before. Most of my friends at MIT, when I went there, were poor whites, poor blacks, and Hispanics. They weren't the Indians because they were fucking racist. Frankly, tell you that. So in the Hindu system created a political ideology called Brahmanism, which said this, the few are better than the everyone else. Zionism is the same thing. That
We
if you,
can't. Your mic is staticky.
let me go back. It's the same philosophy. So I take this very personally for me.
Because Zionism is no different than Nazism. It's a political ideology which has nothing to do with the religious base that it comes from. And it was created to justify butchering of people, subjugation of people, and the genocide of people. And right now, if you consider what's going on, going to the larger historic piece, the Russian people, if you look back at history, were the first people on the planet in 1917 where they had a bottoms-up revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution. And we can have a longer discussion about it. But it was the first time working people rose and it set off a bomb all over the world. Every country wanted to invade Russia. In fact, the United States sent 7,000 troops. But in the soul, at some level of Russia, I'm not talking about Putin or the leadership, the Russian people lost 25 million people fighting Nazis. A lot of people don't remember this. They're the ones who won World War II. And it was a Russian people who remembered what the Nazis did. And that's why when the Ukraine war started, it was the eastern part of Russia, which was bullshit at the United States putting in people like Zelensky. And you know what happened in 2014. So Putin, from his background, you know, having seen his parents being attacked by Nazism, there's a big issue here between Nazis and what took place of the Russian people fighting in Ukraine. But in my view, the United States elites, I have a board up here. Russia has $75 trillion worth of natural resources. The United States has 45 trillion. Iran has 33 trillion. Okay? So when you look at it, the history of the elites, Britain and the United States, was always to rape Russia. Zbigniew Brzezinski he laid it out. He said, we want to split Russia into the western part, European part, Siberia, and the eastern part. So the goal has always been to attack Russia and take all of its resources. So in my view, what started in 2014, starting with Hillary Clinton and Obama, leading till today, is the execution of that policy. So I believe when you look at what's been laid out, they really want to deplete Russia. So they started a two-front war because Iran, in many ways, is a proxy for Russia in the Middle East. So they use Ukraine to start the war on the Russian side. And they had Netanyahu start the bullshit in the Middle East to purposely bring Iran in. That's the goal, to bring Iran into this war. So Russia would have to fight a two-front war. That's the whole name of the game. The goal is that the elites, the multinational companies of oil, mining, and gas want to rape Russia, and they must split it up. So this was all laid out under the Carter administration to have this splitting up of Russia. And that's what this is all about. And ultimately, Zionism is racism, which services British and US imperialism. That's the definition of Zionism. It has nothing to do with Christianity. All you Christian, quote unquote Christians out there need to get your head out of your ass. And particularly the white American Christians in the Bible Belt who have been bamboozled by people like Trump, who knows nothing about Christianity, nothing about Jesus Christ. Jesus would whip the shit out of the Zionists if he were alive today. Judaism has nothing to do with Zionism. Zionism is a political, racist ideology, period. And so what we're witnessing right now is a land grab. Netanyahu, Jared Kushner has openly said he wants to build hotels in Gaza. And I just put out a joke. If you saw a book cover I put out, it's a new real estate book by Jared Kushner. It's called Genocide, How to Buy Real Estate with No Money Down. Okay? Forward by Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. But that's what this is about. This is about, most of us have to earn money and we go get a bank loan, we buy land, right? Or buy our home. These people are just committing genocide. $100 billion investment, and they get $2 trillion worth of land. This is like just brutal what we did to the American Indians, no different. So in that grand scheme of things, Sabby, They don't give a fuck about these people. They see them as vermin. And that's why I'm the only United States president candidate. Jill Stein, by the way, is a fucking Zionist. She's the one who came out against Cynthia McKinney when Cynthia McKinney, who is a member of Congress, probably the only black woman member of Congress who came out against Zionism, and she was kicked out of Congress because she wouldn't play the game with AIPAC. Cynthia McKinney was a Green Party candidate, and she said, wait a minute, I believe that 9/11 may have been done by the Israelis. And Jill Stein called her an anti-Semite. So at the end of the day, all you people thinking Jill Stein is on your side, she's not. She's a fucking Zionist. You peel away her layer, she's a Zionist. So at the end of the day, I'm the only anti-Zionist candidate who has been vociferous about this because I know what it means, the caste system. I know what Zionism means, what Nazism means. So yeah, we should cut all funding to Israel. The other thing, Sabby, it's not just about 10,000 miles away. We need to end the occupation of America by Zionism. So a lot of people talk ceasefire now. It's been going on for, since 1984. Those liberal Zionist movements have done jack. The real issue is Congress is owned by Zionists. The presidency is owned by Zionists. And we have a serious issue in this country because all the so-called America First MAGA people, bunch of idiots. Trump is the biggest fucking Zionist. And that's what we're dealing with. And Zionism, the relationship to economic policy cannot be underestimated. Zionism is the basis of how which the elites print money all day. Cost of living is going up and lifespan is coming down. If you look at our little cards, this is what we've handed out millions of these, right? It's a very simple card. It's got lifespan going down, cost of living going up. So if we want to bring cost of living down, you need to castrate Israel. You need to cut it off, all of it. And cost of living will come down because we'll stop printing money to support that war, that genocidal war machine.
So one of the things I did notice, I disagree with you about Dr. Stein being a Zionist, by the way. But one of the things I did notice with your platform is that there are a number of things here. There's legislative priorities. Of course, there's the economy, there's healthcare. But I notice, similar to other politicians, which I have criticized them for not having this, I don't see a Black agenda. So for you, if you were president, what would be your agenda for Black America?
Well, I've always said this. If you go look at my videos, it's about infrastructure. The movement of the civil rights movement was always providing infrastructure to the inner cities. That was hijacked. And we've never provided infrastructure in inner cities still. If you look, I grew up in Newark. I grew up in Patterson. Most of my friends growing up were Black, and still, I have more affiliations with those people and my people than I do with the quote unquote Indians or the elites that I were forced to grow up with in the last 3 years of high school. But the bottom line is that infrastructure in the inner cities has still not been delivered. If you go to Newark, New Jersey today, the same infrastructure I saw in 1978, 1980, growing up, it hasn't changed that much. If you go to most of the inner cities where predominantly it's Black people and poor whites, infrastructure has never been addressed, Sabby. What we have addressed are issues that are the Band-Aid solution. So for example, when the civil rights movement took place, people like Malcolm X, one of my heroes, he wanted bottom line infrastructure. And what the elites ended up doing, the white liberals took over those movements and they made it about affirmative action, which is necessary, I believe. Affirmative action was a necessary win of those movements. But they didn't.
You have static.
Let me go back. So, when I was at MIT, right?
In 1984, we started a newspaper called The Student. Dean Hope was fired. When I came in 1981 to MIT, this was during the Reagan era. Reagan came and he wanted to wipe out all the gains of the civil rights movements. So most of my friends came from the inner cities, be it in East LA or the inner cities of Detroit. And if you remember this, Sabby, you may, if you go back to the heart of this, in my view, from my own upbringing, education is the ultimate way that you get people out of their surroundings. The way you create wealth. That's what my parents taught us. Now at MIT in 1968, there were only 2 Black graduates. One of them was Shirley Jackson. You may know her. If you walk down the hall of MIT, her picture's up. When she was delivering her PhD dissertation to a room full of white men, she threw her thesis down. She goes, "It's unbelievable that I'm the only Black woman here." Well, the next year they let in 15 Black students. And MIT knew, like, by the way, many universities did this. They knew those students were going to fail because when they came in, they didn't have the basic knowledge to do calculus math because their schools were so decrepit in the inner cities. So anyway, those 15 students who came in 1969-70, they occupied the MIT faculty club. And they said, "You know what? You guys let us in here to have Black faces in high places, but we're going to fail. And then you'll say we were quote unquote dumb and kick us out." But those students took over the faculty club and they forced MIT to institute programs, infrastructure at MIT. So tutoring programs, et cetera. And these are big wins. Whole bunch of things. But those students did it. It didn't come from politicians. It was bottoms up. So when I came to MIT in 81, there were still remnants of that. Reagan came in and he wanted to eliminate all these programs, right? Eliminate these tutoring programs, et cetera.
You have static, but I do, for the sake of time, I do want to just jump in for a second and say this.
I can't hear you. Hold on. I got to bring you back. Sorry about that. So to me, this has not been a Black agenda. It's been something I've been fighting all my life,
Sabby. And that view is infrastructure.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. I have to step in here because we've heard the infrastructure story for quite some time, and I'm not saying that that's not an issue, but the reality is the racial wealth gap, and the only way to fix that, which data has proven this time and time again, is reparations for descendants of slavery in this country. And one of the differences between your candidacy and other candidates that are running outside of the duopoly is that they do have a reparations plan. So the reason why I asked you about a Black agenda is because I noticed on your website, I did not see that. And when I hear this phrase of infrastructure, I feel like, again, that is in my opinion, what I've heard, again, this is the same type of talking point that I do hear, particularly from elites and, people that are from these elite academic institutions that live here in Massachusetts. And they truly believe that all you need to do is fix infrastructure. But the reality is there is a debt that is owed to descendants of slavery in this country that has not been paid. And that repair does need to be made. And it's been made for Japanese Americans that were part of the internment camps. It's been made for those that were Holocaust survivors, as those groups should have been repaired. But the descendants of slavery in this country have not been repaired. They have not been paid for unpaid labor, and the wealth that was stolen from descendants of slavery in this country has not been repaired. So even if you implement and repair the infrastructure, you still have the issue of the wealth disparity between the racial groups, and we are still at the bottom. So one of the things that I would
so what's happened is, you're absolutely right. So what's happened, if you look in Boston, you may have seen the report that came out, right, by the Federal Reserve. In the midst of all the liberal elites talking all their bullshit in Boston, the average net worth of a Black person is $8. Okay, $8. Elizabeth Warren didn't talk about that in 2015, 2018. You can go look at it. I did. Okay, and the net worth of a white person is $250,000. This is right in Boston. So both of these, to me, both need to be addressed. Okay, reparations and infrastructure. They're not separated. But you cannot just do infrastructure and not address this wealth inequity, nor can you address just the wealth inequity and not address reparations. I think both are necessary. And to me, the infrastructure piece, in my view, but I'm not going to be like a liberal fucking elite like Booby Kennedy, just trying to please Black people. Oh, yeah, I'm into reparations, right? Because a lot of people just say that, but they don't actually want to talk about the fundamental issues of implementing that and how that's going to happen. And how do you make sure that whether it's very poor Black people, and by the way, the wages that have occurred over the last 20 years, if you look at it, I think Black people's wages on average were 18K. White people's wages, like middle-class poor whites, were around 40. Their wages have also dropped down. So in a broad sense, what's going on is a complete, Black people's wages have not increased broadly. And there is the issue of addressing that, but you have to do both in my view. So I'm not going to give you, oh yeah, I'm into reparations now because Booby Kennedy says. It's not like and you'll see people saying that. I think you have to take a systems approach to this, and this is not an elite thing for me because I know where I came from, all right? There's a lot of black bourgeois who talk about that, but they don't want to address the issue either. And the fundamental issue is...
I'm very well aware of that, Dr. Shiva, and I've actually called out those individuals on this show multiple times. I'm very well aware of that. And I don't mean for you to get defensive.
Yeah, I think the reality is you look at the history of those people, and have they actually been fighting on the ground on racism? I have. You can go look at my history. I think you're bringing up two different things, and I've seen people do this before. Again, I have called out those people on this show multiple times. My viewers be the first to let you know. So I'm very well aware of that. But I think you are bringing up two different things. 1 minute where I was mentioning to you reparations, which is a debt that is owed, and now you bring up fighting for racism and fighting against both things. Both things, Sabby. No,
there's a difference. Well, let me finish what I was saying. There is a difference between racial justice and a debt that is owed. And that's just what I want to get across to you. No, right, they are two different things.
You're trying to put them into two different buckets. I'm saying they're interrelated.
The reason why I'm putting them into two different buckets is because
so the reparations at MIT that need to be owed was that you have a bunch of people who came who were never given infrastructure, okay, at all. So the debt
that is not how reparations works, Dr. Shiva.
No. That is your definition of reparations.
No, Dr. Shiva, with all due respect, I don't try to tell you how to do science. So I would really appreciate it if you don't try to tell me.
That's like saying, I haven't, wait, Sabby. You're looking at a dark-skinned being.
No. I don't. Dr. Shiva, I do not try to tell you how to do your job. I don't try to tell you about that.
What's my job?
What I am saying, Dr. Shiva, if you interrupt me again, I'm going to mute you. What I am trying to explain to you is this.
If that's how you want to talk to me,
you cannot sit here. You cannot sit here and try to tell me. You cannot sit here and try to tell me what reparations is. I know what it is. It is the debt that is owed.
Indentured servants in the United States. So don't talk to me about that. Lower caste Indians. My great grandfather was a fucking slave. So don't talk to me about that. And you know better than me. You're trying to say that you know better, and I don't know what reparations is.
What I am trying to say to you is,
and don't try to bring other people and compare me to other people.
I am trying to, Dr. Shiva. With all due respect, you don't know everything.
Don't try to put me into
you don't know everything. No, you do not.
And neither do you, Sabby.
I don't claim to.
Because you have a dark skin, I have a dark skin, doesn't mean
there are certain things.
Racism is different
This
than mine.
is not about skin color.
Yes, it is.
This is about lineage. No, it is not.
Oh, really? And I don't know about lineage?
You don't know.
Bullshit.
Dr. Shiva.
You don't know my journey.
Dr. Shiva. What I'm trying to...
We grew up under slavery and indentured servitude. You don't know about that.
I am not talking about India.
Then get to the point and don't try to bucket me.
I am talking about a debt that is owed to descendants of slavery in this country. I am not talking about India.
I'm not talking about India. I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the United States.
I am talking about a debt.
Let me tell you what you want to do. You want to say Cornel West is for reparations, and he's a black guy, and you want to bucket me as I'm not. And that is what you're trying to do.
When did I say that?
Well, why are you saying that when I say that both? Why are you saying when I say both are good that you don't want that goes over your head?
That is not what I'm saying. That I didn't say it goes over my head. What I am saying is it is very important on this show. No. It's very important on this show that we don't intermix the two, because what has happened is people will say, if you cut me off again, I swear to God, I will end this interview. I'm not kidding.
Don't threaten me. You can end it.
I'm not kidding. No, Dr. Shiva, I'm not kidding. And honestly, you're acting like an arrogant jackass. I'm telling you right now, you're acting like an arrogant jackass. Oh, I am very familiar. I am very familiar. You have no respect right now.
You're yelling at me.
To what you had to say, but do not come on here and disrespect me.
Listen to anything I have to say. You kept interrupting me.
That's it. Goodbye. Jesus Christ. Eric, should I move my camera down? Come in and let me know. I can move it down just a little bit if you think so. Should I move it down just a little bit? Tilt it down just a little bit?
Yeah, if you can. Well, that went well.
Okay, is that better? Yeah. Okay. Back to what I was doing. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, some people, you can't talk to them. All right, carry on. That was fun.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, guys, we are back. Sorry about that. What I will not do, I'll tell you one thing, what I will not do, and I have worked in higher ed for a long time, and I worked at MIT, and I've worked at BU, and I've worked at Harvard. And what I will not do on this show is I will not let anybody come on here. I don't give a damn how many degrees you have. I will not let anybody come on here and be totally disrespectful when I'm trying to tell you about a specific issue. And you try to cut me off because you're like, well, what about my people? What about this? What about the I ain't got time for it. I ain't got time for it. I don't give a damn how many degrees you have. You will not come on here and disrespect me, period. Now, moving on. Jesus Christ. Let's give a shout out to Sabby patrons. I hope you guys like the new setup. Do you guys like it? If not, let me know. I'm open either way. I just wanted to try to do something a little bit different, but Jesus Christ, man, I'll be damn. I don't care what school you went to. You are not what school you taught at. I don't give a damn. You are not going to come on here and disrespect me, period. Sometimes some of these academics, they think they know so damn much. They think they can talk to people any kind of way that they want. And I am not the one, period. Okay. Let's go ahead and give a shout out to patrons. Jesus Christ. We do have a good show tonight, guys. We do have a good show. I was not going to sit up and let this guy all this bullshit. Not going to let that happen. Oh, thanks, Eric. Thanks for letting me know. Not going to sit up there and let that shit happen. Shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. Ay. If you're interested in being a patron, I have 5 categories. We have ultimate, Sabinators, Sabsters. There's also the Sabbies. Don't forget about the Sabby snacks. And of course, there are members as well. Thank you guys so much. Fully appreciate you, fam. Hey. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I want to give a shout out to new Sabby patrons. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give a shout out for the Unemployed Scholar, which I think that's a cool name, Cynthia Arnold and Lee Hall. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hey. Ay, man. Boy, I tell you. I'm telling you, I am not. Listen, it is a new dawn, new day. We got new setup and everything. I will not be disrespected. And let's go ahead and go to the super chats. Jesus Christ. Gigi says, hello, Sabby. I voted for Jill Stein by mail here in Florida. The ballot was counted and processed. Voting by mail works. Thank you, Gigi. Oh, and yes, I'm a black man. No thanks to Kamala. Thank you, Roger. Sab going retro reminds me of 2021 Sab setup. Nice. Thank you. Thanks, Trust and Success. Nice setup, Sabby, but we come for your commentary and VOOP points, not your background setup, but nice, nothing less. Yeah, tilted the camera down. I think it looks a little bit better. Thank you, Kelton. Dr. Shiva is sharing an obvious AI voice clip of Dr. Jill Stein trying to smear her. IDK, I don't know how he can't tell it's AI. Interesting. Thank you, What It Do. So happy to be able to catch you live. My lady is mad jelly when I listen to you. I'm sorry. She's welcome too. Thank you, Lawrence. This looks to be affecting your spirit, draining. Thank you, Sparky. Bring Cynthia McKinney back from exile. Thank you. She was supposed to come on a while back. Thank you, New York Varsity. No matter who you're voting for, if Stein is a Zionist, she is the worst Zionist ever. Thank you, Sparky. Make Israel Syria again. In those Ottoman Empire days, Levant Jews got along fine with their neighbors, whether Muslim, Christian, or otherwise. Thank you, Samad. Black people live everywhere in America, not just inner cities. Reparations now. Don't tell them nothing, though. Thank you, Lawrence. I have Black friends. Jesus Christ. Aye. Thank you, Dr. Hardin. Koala Barris waited till the fourth quarter and 2 minutes on the clock to speak to Black men not like us. Thank you, Sparky. Fun fact, Israel has killed more Americans than Iran. Remember the USS Liberty. Thank you, Samad. He's talking over a Black woman on her show. What's this man is brainless when it comes to slavery. Thank you, Sparky. Dr. Shiva, which caste did Roma/Gypsies come from? Thank you, Lawrence. Don't let him cuss at you. You guys are hilarious. I wasn't looking at the chat because like now my computer's like down at this angle. So I'm just now seeing these. Thank you, Sparky. Dr. Shiva, you are not presenting well. Thank you, Jasmine. On the natural born citizen thing, you got to be born in the U.S. or a territory. Even McCain was born in U.S. territory, Panama Canal Zone, which formerly belonged to the U.S. before it became a concession. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. I have so much respect for you. Thanks, Maria. Shake it off. Love you, Sabs. You did great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Philly. Yeah, Sabby, stand on business. Oh, my God. Thanks, Roger. Sabby stood on business. Thank you, Lawrence. He showed who he is. Good job. I think you mean Sabby. Shout out Chris H for the super sticker. Thank you, Jasmine. That guy is a tool, by the way. He acts like he knows stuff, but talks like a conspiracy lawyer. Thank you, Lawrence. Good job, Sabby. Thank you. Her name is Clear. Dr. MIT was over talking you. Get him, Sabs. Thank you, Charlie. Good on you, Sabrina. You don't need that BS. Nice new setup, by the way. Thank you. Thanks, Janine. He showed his true disdain for Black Americans getting what is owed. Thank you, Oz. I'm shocked he made it 47 minutes into the interview. Thanks, Maria. Shame that he trashed interview. It was going well until his ego ruined it. You don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk. P.S. Love the cozy corner. Thank you. Thank you for the super sticker, TMB. Thanks, Roger. Shiva, Sab not running for office. You are. We, the voters, tell you what we need, not the other way around. And indentured servants were not slaves. Get the fuck out of here. Yeah. Thank you for the super chat, Trash Panda. Thank you. None of your business. I have a headache now. Love you anyways. Thank you, Sparky. Dr. Shiva didn't know whom he was dealing with, wasn't prepared and tried to wing it. Not a good look. He's been on here before. I don't know what's going on. Thank you, Ty. Great job. He was so disrespectful. Glad you got rid of him. Let's move on with the show. Got my popcorn buttery ready. Let's go. And thank you, Roger. He calling everyone racist. Imagine what he calling you now. Thank you, Chris. No other ethnic group were subject to chattel slavery in this country. Reparations now. Thanks, Ricky Cooper. I am new to this channel. You are awesome. Thank you and welcome. It's not usually that way, Ricky. Thank you, Sugar Free. My good sister Sabby showing some love. Thank you, G Road, Dr. Punjabi out of pocket. And thank you, Zane. You hit him with that doobie doo. Oh my God. Aye. And Eric is back, guys. My producers, Eric is back from vacation. And I think you guys are all glad to see him. I surely am. So it's great to have Eric back and Corey as well. So what else are we going to discuss tonight, ladies and gentlemen? Before we dive in, go ahead and smash that like button if you haven't had a chance to do so. If you're new and you like what you see, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And we're going to go into that juicy thumbnail. Let's go ahead and bring that bad boy up. What else are we going to discuss tonight, ladies and gentlemen? Let's get in. Tonight, we are discussing Kamala Harris' Black Men Plan. Kamala Harris has announced her plan for Black men. Is it worthy or is it just to get votes? We'll talk into that. Of course, we're going to get into this conversation here. Gaza is officially on fire. We'll get into that. And I'm also going to show you some of the things that the Biden administration probably didn't really want you to know about. And you'll get to put 2 and 2 together here to see what is going to happen from here. We're also going to discuss, this was interesting. Nina Turner defends Jill Stein. Yeah, we're going to get into that one. We're also going to discuss the GOP gains voters. Something is happening there with GOP registration. And I do think that's something that we need to pay attention to as well, and what that could mean for November. And of course, Dr. Shiva was just here. And I am sorry if that is your first time tuning into this show. That is usually not how it is. We'll also get into the Florida ballot measures for tonight. So welcome, guys. Let's get cozy. And let's go ahead and dive right in. Okay. Let's get into this first story, ladies and gentlemen. So earlier this week, I saw videos of Palestinian kids literally burning on fire, just burning up. And this was another attack by Israel. Now, from what I understand, this was a refugee camp outside of a hospital, so it shouldn't have been touched in the first place. But these were people that were sleeping, just, trying to rest throughout the night, and Israel lit them up. On top of that, the other issue that we're running into is that Israel has been once again blocking aid and food into Gaza once again. Let's go ahead and get into this clip here. It's just getting crazier, guys.
Turning now to the Middle East, Israel is intensifying its attacks on both Gaza and Lebanon as the situation there continues to deteriorate. This morning, there are major concerns over the safety of 400,000 Palestinians in northern Gaza after Israeli troops pushed ahead with a major ground assault on a refugee camp.
In a post on X, the UN's chief for Palestinian refugees said, in part, that many there have ignored recent evacuation orders by Israel because no place in Gaza was safe. He added that many shelters and services were being forced to shut, some for the first time. Meanwhile, in Lebanon, Hezbollah says it has been turning back advancing Israeli troops on the border one day after.
Let's go ahead and pause here, and then we're going to go ahead and fast forward a little bit to get to the commentary. Here we go.
Hundreds of thousands of displaced Palestinians there.
Yeah, and that's a staggering number, 400,000, as you mentioned. We'll start in the Jabalia refugee camp, which is once again the focus of the IDF. Viewers might remember that name, Jabalia, because the IDF was there just over a year ago, raiding that camp. It's now back there, and the IDF says the goal here is to stop Hamas fighters from...
Pause. So this is just part of the damage, the fires. Just part of the damage. And this is one of those things where I point to this again, and we got to talk about the US government, because the reality is this could have been prevented. And the fact that you have people that are just sitting there burning alive, which I can't show you the video footage on here, but if you look on social media, you'll be able to see this, where there were actual children burning alive. And our US government gives these talking points about, well, we're going to be, harsher on Israel. We're going to urge them to allow aid to come in. You have to understand that these are just talking points. And you have to understand that the US government approves of everything that Israel is doing. They gave them the weapons to be able to do this to those people. And on top of that, they're still attacking Lebanon and also planning to hurt Iran. So you got three things happening here in the Middle East, and the US government is totally complicit. I don't understand how any of these people can go to sleep at night knowing the videos that I saw. And if you've seen them too, the videos that I saw are incredibly disturbing, incredibly disturbing. And I don't understand how they can just sleep with that.
Regrouping, and this is now day 5 of the raid, which has triggered, as you can imagine, another evacuation order. But the residents and the civilians in the area say, once again, and they find themselves in this awful situation of having nowhere safe to go. That's what they're telling us. That's what UN officials are saying, because again and again and again, this has been the same scenario over the past year. Philip Lazzarini, as you mentioned, head of the UN Refugee Agency, saying 400,000 people now trapped in the area. Shelters, which managed somehow over the past year to stay open, are now forced to shut down.
Shelters forced to shut down. This is where we are now, ladies and gentlemen. This is where we are now. So we're talking about over 400,000 Palestinians displaced. All because Israel wants the land. Israel wants them dead. And I've warned people time and time again, this is not just about Hamas. This is about Israel taking over the land and continuing the greater Israel project. I have a question for those who say that they are so pro-life. Where are you on this issue when you see these children just burning up the way that they are? Here's one of the martyrs. I do want you to see him as well. Let me bring this up on the screen. This is from Palestine Community. Honor our martyrs, say their names. His name was Shaban al-Dalu. This is the guy that is in one of the videos on social media that was burning alive. And I don't understand how anybody can be okay with this. But I'm showing you this because I want you to realize something. These people have names. These aren't like just, they're not indivisible. These people have names. And I want you to understand that they have names, because I notice mainstream media continues to talk about them as though they're just numbers. Oh, 40,000, 41,000, 42,000, 50,000, such and such thousand. No, these people have names. The problems that we continue to run into is that the media continues to find a way to run cover for Israel. And the media, that's the biggest form of information. Whether it's corporate media or not, a lot of people love corporate media. So it's the biggest form of information that people need to understand. So the media, they continue to refuse to call this a genocide. Now, I want you to see this clip here. This is from CNN News. This is one of the doctors that was there talking to one of the commentators on CNN News. And a shout out to that doctor, because she corrects that commentator to let her know, no, this is a genocide. Stop calling it a humanitarian crisis. Let's get into this clip here.
This humanitarian crisis with the additional factor of Gaza is about to enter the winter, which often brings heavy rain to the region.
Kate, in all honesty, a humanitarian crisis is what you deal with when you have a hurricane, what you deal with when you have an earthquake. You have an insult and a humanitarian response. This is my career. This is what I do for a living. Every single person who does this for a living will tell you the same thing. This is different. This is not a humanitarian crisis. Kate, and I'm going to say it very clearly for your viewers to hear, this is genocide. When 70% of the population that are killed are women and children, when the population is starved of food, of water, of medicine, when you have attacks, repeated attacks on all the hospitals, the clinics, the aid distribution sites, the humanitarian aid agencies that try to help. More UN workers have been killed in Gaza than in UN's history. When you have over 900 families that have been exterminated, that have been taken off of the civil registry, killed, when you have over 17,000 children that have lost one or both parents, when you have bakeries, aid distribution sites, churches, mosques, schools, and in the last 3 days, in the last 24 hours, in fact, a hospital today that was bombed, as you just reported, the hospital where I personally was working, and I can tell you, they are working every second of every day to try and sustain life when Israel's strategy and evidence on the ground suggests that they're doing the exact opposite. They were targeted today. There was a rehabilitation rehabilitation center that was targeted in the last 24 hours, and there was an orphanage that was targeted earlier this week. These are the types of places that are being targeted. And so it's really hard to hear it over and over and over again, framed in the way that it's being framed in the media, which frankly, Kate, is very misleading. It is very.
So there she is letting them know it is misleading. The media is misleading you. And Kate, you're one of them.
Very misleading. 365 days of this. Death tolls that are so far outdated. We have no idea how many people are killed, but I am genuinely afraid about what we're going to find out when the dust settles. History books will be written on this, and countries will have to reckon, media agencies will have to reckon with their major role in the genocide of an entire population and in the destruction of humanitarian law and rule of order.
Yeah, so that is a doctor who is there. Someone who's been there, someone who has seen what is happening on the ground. And I'm very glad that she corrected that on CNN, because they're part of the problem, not just CNN, but all of corporate media, the way that they have covered this since October 7th, because they're responding to their handlers. And here's another one that I thought was really interesting. So now AOC is calling this out. Everyone check this out, okay? She said the horrors unfolding in northern Gaza are the result of completely unrestrained Netanyahu government, fully armed by the Biden administration, while food aid is blocked and patients are bombed in hospitals. This is a genocide of Palestinians. The U.S. must stop enabling it. Arms embargo now. So what was interesting about this is, if I remember correctly, AOC was the one that told you that they were working tirelessly around the clock for a ceasefire. Isn't that what AOC told you? She knew it was a lie then, but she said it anyway. So good on her for calling out the Biden administration. But the reality is, you guys got to know this is a game by now. You got to know it's a game. That's just her trying to play her part to show people, hey, I'm still kind of progressive, a little bit, sort of. But if she was really serious about it, she wouldn't be endorsing and backing the administration that's doing it. Kamala Harris is still very much a part of this administration. Never forget that. I don't see her trying to move towards any of the candidates that don't have that view. I don't see her unendorsing Kamala Harris. No, because she wants to look out for her political career. So again, this is the person who told you they were working tirelessly for a ceasefire. Again, a lie. Now that she says arm embargo now, right? Check this out. Let me show you the game that they're trying to play. U.S. demands Israel improve humanitarian conditions in Gaza or risk military aid. So does everybody see this? So let me tell you what they're trying to do. They have decided to give Israel 30 days to fix the humanitarian aid issue, or otherwise we will not continue to give aid to Israel. First of all, let's talk about the timeline. Number one, just think about all the people that could die within 30 days. Oh, okay, Israel, you have 30 days. You got 30 days to continue to kill people and starve them. You can get away with it for 30 days. 30 days from now is after the presidential election. So this is a way for them, again, to try to help Kamala Harris with her campaign. You see everybody put this together. They could have done this immediately after October 7th. Antony Blinken, number one, should be fired because he knew about it before it was happening the first time. Remember, we talked about Netanyahu snitched on him. So it is what it is. So he knew about it before it was going to happen, knew about it when it was happening. And he lied to you at press conferences to make it seem like he didn't know. Oh, we don't know about this. We got to look into it. He knew. We talked about that a couple days ago. So now that it's getting closer to election day, now all of a sudden, the administration wants to say, improve humanitarian conditions or we'll do arms embargo, something that they can do right now. Does everybody see the game? This is how they work. but still giving Israel the green light to kill people and start to starve people. You got 30 days where you can still starve people and get away with it. If they really cared about those people, they would issue the arms embargo now. But the reality is they don't care about those people. They don't. Professor Zink is here calling this out. And I think this is incredibly important. You guys have got to see this. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are sending 100 U.S. troops and 1 billion anti-missile system to Israel as they prepare to attack Iran. Instead of withholding weapons and forcing a ceasefire, they are bringing us to the brink of a full-blown regional war. Psychos. Everybody see this? U.S. to deploy about 100 troops to operate advanced anti-missile system in Israel amid heightened tensions. These people are insane. These people are leading us to a larger war. This is what they want. Does everybody get it? When the U.S. government, when these officials tell you we don't want a war with Iran, that is a lie. These people are lying to you. That's exactly what they want. Just as Israel wants Iran gone, so does the U.S. government. They don't want them there either. They're all in on it. And I've been calling this out since day one when people are like, give them a chance. Give them a chance. If you would have paid attention to what Biden's website looked like before they revised it. Oh, honey, look at this. This was November 8th of 2020. Watch this. This was shared November 8th of 2020. Bez DeMark says, at least Joe Biden cares for the marginalized. Look at this. How many of you knew about this? Urge Arab states to move beyond quiet talks and take bolder steps towards normalization with Israel. Firmly reject the BDS movement, which singles out Israel, home to millions of Jews, and too often veers into anti-Semitism, while letting Palestinians off the hook for their choices. Let me say this again, ladies and gentlemen. While letting Palestinians off the hook for their choices. How many of you saw this? This is the Biden-Harris administration. This was on the website. This is who they always were. The only reason they even started talking about a ceasefire is because they received so much backlash with the protests, because there were mass protests across the world. That's the only reason they even said ceasefire. I hope everybody understands. This was always the plan. They were already calling out the Palestinian people. So you can't buy into, and then I'll show you after they edit it. Because see, people think we can't find stuff. They updated it. This is from Annoyingly Yours, Patrick. Let me show you the update that they made right here, where it says firmly reject the BDS movement, which singles out Israel and too often veers into anti-Semitism, and fight other efforts to delegitimize Israel on the global stage. So notice how they said, and fight other efforts to delegitimize Israel on the global stage. So they removed the part where it said, reject the BDS movement, which singles out Israel, home to millions of Jews, and too often veers into anti-Semitism, while letting Palestinians off the hook for their choices. Ladies and gentlemen, this is who the Biden administration always was. Joe Biden wasn't kidding when he told you that he was a proud Zionist. This was always the plan. So let's pretend October 7th never happened. Do you still see where the Biden administration was going in reference to the Palestinian people? They were not in favor of the Arab nations. It's their website, not mine. I don't know what else there is to be said except for the fact that if nothing else bothers you, seeing children burning alive on fire, There was never any plan to free these people. Do you understand? This whole ceasefire thing, that was never supposed to be a thing. The only reason it became a thing is because of the activism on the ground, because the activists were calling for a ceasefire. And this is something that the Democratic Party has done time and time again. They did this during the George Floyd protests as well. They hear what's happening with the movement. They hear the people chanting in the streets. So what the Democratic Party will do, they'll take the words that you were saying and they will repeat those words to make you think they're going to do something when in reality, they're not going to do anything. Don't believe me? Go back to the George Floyd movement. Remember when they kneeled in kente cloth? What did they do? What did they do after all the protests? This is why I say it is very important that you cannot allow these politicians, the Democrat, Republican, it's usually not Republicans out there with these types of protests, but you cannot allow them to co-opt a movement. You cannot allow them to co-opt the rhetoric. And this is one of the big problems with BLM Global Network. This is what they did. They allowed them to do just that. And they're always looking for activists to sell out, by the way. But what is happening right now in Gaza? This was a refugee camp. How many times does Israel get to attack a refugee camp and get away with it? These people are monsters. And I don't understand how you can support any candidate that is for the system. I don't understand it. Let's go to some of the comments. Ay. What a mess. What a mess. Let me move this over here. Ay. I don't know if I want to turn this way or that way. Actually, I'm gonna put it back over here. Sorry, things. I'm still working out things with the new setup, guys. Okay. Thank you, Jabari. I'm like JG Wentworth with Reparation 877 cash now. Thank you, T. Ada. I don't know who that clown doctor was, and I don't even want to know. He sounded like a narcissist who's in need of therapy, in my opinion. Oh, boy. Thank you for the super chat, TMB. Thank you, Jason. I have never heard you say period so much. Hey, Eric, we might have to do a short call in after the show now after that. Jesus Christ. Thank you, Courtney. I just tuned in. I got to go back and see where the interview went wrong. Thank you for this as well, Courtney. Love the new set, by the way. Thank you. Thank you, Sparky. Love you, Sabby. Great work. And thank you for this as well, Sparky. Go Asa Allah, fight the power. Thank you for this one. Every time someone says Israel is our only friend in the Middle East, I can't help but think before Israel, we had no enemies in the Middle East. U.S. missionary John Sheehan. Thanks, Glenn. So does this mean you will not be voting for Dr. Shiva or still a maybe? No, Glenn. I wasn't voting for Dr. Shiva. No. Thank you, Chris. Social media is blowing up the propaganda machine. I got to support this channel. I wish more people took the time to care about these issues. Keep going. And thanks for keeping all of us up to date. Thank you, Chris. And you're welcome. Thank you, Kenneth. Hey, Sabby, I live in NYC, but I'm from Medford. What's up, fam? What's up, Medford? You are shedding light. Thank you. Thank you and welcome. There's like a huge brewery hall in Medford now, Kenneth. I don't know when is the last time you were in Medford, but Medford is kind of bougie now. Let's see, Sparky. Palestinian diaspora with BRICS investment will return to Gaza and rebuild it quicker than many imagine. Flattened, but not finished. Thank you, Dr. Thunder. I appreciate your persistence. Dims are done. I like the new setup, by the way. Thank you. Thanks, guys. And thank you for the super chat. Shoop. All righty, guys. Go ahead and smash that like button if you haven't had the chance to do so. And let's get the Rumble Rant. Thank you, Goo81. Is Nikki Haley Nimrata a Brahmin as well? Ooh, that's a good question. Well, Nikki Haley is Sikh, right? I think she's Sikh. I have to check that. Thank you, Mark Pugsley. Sabby, I wish one of those black guys had snapped back at Obama. Yeah, well, they were part with the campaign. They were trying to help with the campaign, so that probably isn't going to happen. Thank you, Goo. Today announced that the U.S. will give Israel 30 days to end the humanitarian crisis, or there will be military sanctions. So they will wait for Palestinians to starve, then punish. Another sheep herd ploy. Exactly. 30 days. You got 30 days to still starve people. Thank you, Hemp Car. You don't call a chicken egg a baby chicken. Holy zygotes. Reminds me of Monty Python. Every sperm is sacred. However, more will die from our toxic food, water, and air than abortion access. I wish Shiva would put the UN URL on his card that says cancer is going up 77% by 2050. 77%. That's our key issue. You can't help Gaza if you die from cancer. Thank you, Caveman Daddy, for the $5 tip on Rockfin. And thank you for this hemp card. Cut all generational wealth then if we can't get reparations. Why should just white people be able to accumulate wealth from work? It took 100 years for the president to admit the facts on Tulsa was suppressed. Imagine if white farm owners had to rebuy all their parents' land. Many farms have been sold too. That's a good point. Speaking of good points, it's time to get into a little bit of voter registration info, ladies and gentlemen. Now, at the beginning of Kamala Harris's campaign, again, I told you guys that was more the honeymoon period, but she was surging, right? Like they said, oh, look, she's leading in all these swing states, etc. Then after the endorsement from Taylor Swift, there was an increase in Democrat voter registration. In fact, significantly in Pennsylvania, which is, for those who don't know, Pennsylvania is Taylor Swift's home state. That's where she's originally from. Got to remember, people move to Nashville a lot of times. But that was kind of a sign, right? That looked like things were going to be great for Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party. Now, as we get closer to Election Day, things are starting to change. And it's really interesting how the tide is starting to turn. And I think one of the things I want to remind people when we get into Republican voters, it seems like to me that whereas Democrat voters may tend to act a little bit earlier, it seems like conservative voters tend to wait a little bit later. And I think you're going to see that now in this clip here from CNN about the new voter registration. Listen to this, folks.
Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, well, they might as well just assume residency in this Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's attracted the most amount of attention of any of the 50 states, and it could very well determine the next president. And now with the voter registration deadline fast approaching, there are some critical data points to help give us some clues about what might happen in just 3 short weeks. So I have Harry Enton here at the Magic Wall to dive into the numbers. All right, so Harry, tell us what you have found about how voters are leaning at this point compared to 2020.
Yeah, I mean, the voter registration numbers, if you want a stat that Republicans absolutely love, it's this one. All right, Pennsylvania voter registration, you register by party in that state. You go back to November of 2020, you see Democrats 47%, Republicans 39%. That was an 8-point advantage. Look at where we are today. Yes, more voters in Pennsylvania are registered as Democrats and Republicans, but it's now just 44% to 40%. Now they've got a 4-point gap. Republicans, have cut that Democratic advantage in half. In such a short period of time. They have gone out, they have registered voters. There are folks that have come over to their side who are previously registered Democrats. The question is, where are they picking up ground, Manu? Where are they?
Pause here for just a second and let's talk about something. So you guys see what's happening, right? It looks as though the Republican voters waited, whereas a lot of the Democrat voters are those who were considering supporting the Democratic Party, waiting to see if Biden was going to drop out or whatever. The moment that Kamala Harris was announced, they were like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and register, Democrat, especially after that endorsement from Taylor Swift as well. But now you're starting to see with the conservative voters, it seems like, again, they tend to wait a little bit later. We are now about 3 weeks away from the presidential election. And now they're starting to see an increase in GOP registration. So we got to ask again, where are those voters coming from? Because I would think a lot of people that were like Trump supporters, they probably already were registered anyway, right? Like these are people that were probably already registered to vote, maybe supported Trump in 2016 and in 2020. But these are people that most likely probably were not registered in 2022 for the midterms and also in 2020. So who could those people be? One possibility is it could be some of those Nikki Haley voters, people who supported her during the GOP primary, but maybe they weren't registered through the Republican Party. It could be them. It could be some independents. And I think that's going to be something that really decides this presidential race. It's going to be the independent voters, right? Let's go ahead and dive back in.
Picking up ground. This to me says it all. All right. Which Pennsylvania counties did the GOP gain in registration? If you look in the counties where less than 50% of the population is non-college white voters, Republicans gain just a point. Where you have over 50% non-college whites, look at this. Republicans gain 6 points on average.
Wow.
They are picking up ground in the areas you would expect them to pick up ground.
So once again, we're seeing that Republicans are picking up, again, the non-college white voters. This also speaks to, you know, some of the blue collar workers as well, tend to be leaning more towards the Republican Party.
Right, those non-college white dominated areas, coal country in the Northeast, Southwest outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But the bottom line is the registration trends, the trends we've been seeing the last few cycles with Republicans dominating among non-college white voters, very much showing up in this party registration.
It's so interesting because David McCormick, who's the Senate candidate, the Republican Senate candidate, told me actually he believes that can actually propel him to victory because they're narrowing that margin with Democrats of voter registration. But what does this mean for Kamala Harris and her chances of victory in Pennsylvania?
All right, so all of this data, bad news for Democrats, right? Good news for Republicans. But there's one thing to keep in mind, right? You had that New York Times Siena College poll that came out yesterday that showed Kamala Harris slightly ahead, but within the margin of error. Why is that? Because take a look here. This is the Pennsylvania margin by party registration in that poll. What you see here is that Kamala Harris, I'm going to come over to your side of the screen, Manu, is doing better among Democrats, a 77-point lead, than Donald Trump is among Republicans, a 74-point advantage. She's also doing better with those who are not registered with a party or with another party. But this nugget is key because even though Republicans have closed that registration gap, they haven't closed it completely. So the fact that Harris is doing slightly better among Democrats and Republicans, and there are more of them, that is what gives Democrats solace, is because at this particular point, that state, compared to, say, Arizona, slightly more favorable to Kamala Harris.
So I want to jump in here for just a second and I want to say something as well. So what I think is happening is I think some of the people that are coming out to support Kamala Harris, and by the way, some people have already voted. I've already noticed this, but some of the people that are coming out to support Kamala Harris, they're probably from that Philadelphia and Pittsburgh area, right? So those areas tend to be more blue. It's similar like this in Massachusetts too. Like the cities tend to be more blue. And as you get out into the rural areas, they tend to be a little bit more red. With the exception of the Berkshires, they usually do tend to be blue. But I'm guessing that some of the people where the Republican Party may be closing that gap is with some of those rural voters that maybe did not come out and vote for Donald Trump in 2020. So maybe it's those people. I'm wondering if some of those people that they're gaining are people that may have supported Joe Biden in 2020, but now are supporting Donald Trump. Remember what they're saying in the story here. And this is what we always got to remember. What is the message in the story? Is that Republican voter registration is increasing, particularly in Pennsylvania. They are starting to close that gap between the Democratic Party. So that would tell me these are either independent voters that maybe are registering Republican, or it could be people, and the Democratic Party may not want to hear this, but it could be some of the people that voted for Biden in 2020 and now are flipping to vote for Donald Trump. And I've seen this happen before. Remember, there were people that voted for Obama that switched and voted for Donald Trump. There were people that voted for Trump in 2016 and voted for Biden in 2020. In fact, I know one person personally who did that. So we're having like a lot of like movement that's happening, particularly there in Pennsylvania. But he's going to get into some of the other states, too, that I want you to see.
At least in the polling data so far.
So what does this tell us? I mean, are we seeing this nationally? Are we seeing this in other battleground states, this change in the registration advantage Democrats?
Yeah. All right. So this, if it was just Pennsylvania and we're seeing just one state, I don't think we'd necessarily be doing this segment. But I believe It is part of a larger picture. Fewer voters who are registered as Democrats. This is across the battleground states where you have party registration. Not every state has party registration, right? Wisconsin doesn't, Georgia doesn't, Michigan doesn't. But in the battleground states where, in fact, you do have party registration, there are now fewer registered Democrats in Arizona, fewer registered Democrats in Nevada, fewer registered Democrats, and, of course, the great state of North Carolina.
Okay, that could be a problem for Kamala Harris's campaign. This is the exact opposite of what we were seeing when Kamala Harris announced. This is the opposite. You know, she was doing pretty well in those states, and now we're starting to see that voter registration for the Democratic Party is down in those swing states. I'll tell you something else in a minute. We'll come back. We'll come back.
So what we're seeing in Pennsylvania is being seen in other states as well. More folks are registering as Republicans as compared to Democrats. But we're looking at the battleground states. Let's take this out nationally, all right? This is party registration, but let's look at party identification. Party registration, of course, is you're actually registered with the party. Party ID is when you say, I feel like a Democrat today, I feel like a Republican today. They're correlated, but they're not exactly the same. But I think it gets at the trend that's going on here, Manu. All right, so party ID nationally. You go to October, November of 2016, Democrats had a 3-point advantage. You go 4 years ago, Democrats had a 6-point advantage. Look at where we are today, Manu. Republicans with a 1-point advantage. A very different picture, very much mirroring what we see in the party registration numbers in those key battleground states and Pennsylvania in particular.
This is very telling, you guys. This is very telling. Again, as I've said before, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, but it does seem like to me that Democrats tend to, when it comes to presidential election, it seems like Democrat voters tend to act early and Republican voters tend to act a little bit later. And so this is why I was saying, like, when Kamala Harris was having like her honeymoon period, this is why I was telling people, like, you guys, like, you should probably wait until we get closer to the election, because that happens for a lot of candidates. Like, they announce and then like they have this wave of like energy and everybody's hype and excited about them. And then as we get closer to the election day, you see things start to change. Now, I want to show you something else that I think people should see. This is important as well. Shout out to Simon Ataba for this clip. NBC's Murray says Harris is losing a 5-point lead. Losing 5-point lead. Listen to this. Now, this is MSNBC, so 2 different networks.
We had, of course, Joe Biden in the race, losing ground to Donald Trump. Kamala Harris gets in the race. It seems to be tied up. You have a debate. Harris gets the bump from the debate, goes up 4 or 5 points, and then it comes back where you knew it was going to come back to. We're 3 weeks out. We're tied. It's 48-48. And there's some really interesting numbers I want to ask you about, and mainly about Kamala Harris needing to lock down a higher percentage of Hispanic voters, needing to lock down a higher number of black voters, and also, of course, carrying on the other side of the margin, carrying a historic number of white educated voters. And it's just fascinating to see how all that's going to play together. Tell us what you got.
Yeah, and Joe, you're exactly right. The timing of our poll is really instructive here. And when our September poll came out and had Harris with a 5-point lead over Donald Trump, that, of course, was after the debate. It was after a really rough news environment for Donald Trump with the discussion about Springfield, Ohio. And now all of a sudden we do show a tied race. And what has occurred is that those soft Republicans, non-MAGA Republicans, have come back home to Trump.
Okay. So do you see what's happening, ladies and gentlemen? So he said the soft MAGA, he said the soft MAGA Republicans have come back home to Donald Trump. Kamala Harris was ahead of 5 points, by 5 points ahead of Donald Trump. And now he's saying that it is tied. So that means that some of those, I would say some of maybe the Nikki Haley supporters, in the Republican primary, or maybe even some of those Ron DeSantis supporters. I'm not really sure, but it seems like it might be more the Nikki Haley people are starting to come back around and say, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead. I wanted Nikki Haley, or I wanted, Ron DeSantis, but I think, instead of sitting this one out, I think I'm going to go ahead and support Donald Trump. So what that shows you is that it seems like with the Republican Party, in particular with the Republican voters, they seem to come back around in the end. Now, there may be some of them still, and nobody is really mentioning this anymore, but the reality is RFK Jr. is still on the ballot in some of those swing states, by the way. And there are still some people that are going to vote for RFK Jr., even though he, sort of suspended his campaign and got on board with Donald Trump and said, we're trying to do this, yada, yada. But this is another thing. And I think this is where the Democratic Party could be underestimating, because there's a lot of focus on Jill Stein, et cetera. But I think they could be underestimating the fact that there were some people who may have been maybe open to the Democratic Party, or were Democrats or whatever, that are supporting RFK Jr. All of RFK Jr.'s support didn't come from Donald Trump. I would say most of it was, but not all of it. So just keep that in mind. He is still on the ballot in the swing states. Go ahead and finish up here.
In our September poll, they were lagging, obviously, after the debate, after the discussion of Springfield, Ohio. Our poll finds them that they are back with Trump, and that explains him going from 44% in our poll in September now to 48%. But, Joe, you ended up mentioning the things that Harris has to work on with shoring up Latino voters, getting African Americans in the fold, white women. Our poll ends up having a really big gender gap, where Harris has a 14-point lead among female voters, while Donald Trump has a 16-point lead among male voters. That's overall a 30-point net gender gap. And what is kind of fascinating is that Trump's lead with men is slightly larger than Harris's lead with women. And if her ability to get back in a lead, national lead over Trump, is being able to have a bigger lead among women than Trump's lead among men. And so a lot of those demographics, this is the last 3 weeks of the race. This is why you end up having mobilization and campaign, to be able to juice your turnout, to shore up your weaknesses. And we're going to see what both campaigns have up their sleeves over the next 3 weeks.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, this explains also why Kamala Harris's campaign may be freaking out a little bit, or why the Democratic Party may be freaking out a little bit. Obviously, there is they call it the threat of Jill Stein. So obviously they are going to be worried about that. But at the same time, the reality is the fact that she has lost that 5-point lead, that is very telling. And I remember a couple of weeks ago, there were some commentators, corporate media commentators, that said that, it didn't look like that needle was going to move at all. I think they spoke too soon. Things change as you get closer to the election day. So that's that, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get to some of the comments here in the chat. Thank you, Sparky. Correction, go Ansar Allah. Sorry about that. Thank you. Thank you, Cynical. Did you see Ron Paul's video called DOD Permission to Use Lethal Force Against Americans? This scares me more than Project 2025. I have not, but I can check that out. Thank you, IHLS. Sabby, and all of you listeners, I want you to know that you're amazing. Well, thank you. I'm sure they appreciate that too. Thank you for the super sticker, True Essence. Thank you so much. Thank you, Social Emotional Learning. Dr. Shiva needs social emotional learning, man. Call me. Oh, boy. Thank you, None of Your Business. Who owns the voting machines? Polls don't matter. Thank you, Sparky. Having college and non-college in polls seems weird to me. It seems you have to just popped up in the last 20 years or so, I guess. It's another way to separate and manipulate people. Yeah, that's a class divide. Thank you so much, Naya, for the super sticker. Natalie says, love the new background, Sabby. Thank you. And Giovanni says, nice corner and illumination, Sabrina Weil. Thank you. And we can talk about it a little bit on call-in. You guys let me know if you let me know how you really feel. You like it? You not like it? I don't know. I'm open to ideas. Let's go to the Rumble rant. Hey. Thank you, Goo. Do not believe the words coming out of the U.S. government mouths, including Dems. That is why AOC is virtue signaling about genocide, because she got marching orders to fool you that Kay Harris will do something. There you go. Thank you, Mark. Also, Sabby, a viewer told me the DD boys that they should have you on to talk about Trump's lead. A viewer told the DD boys that they should have you on to talk about Trump's lead. Okay, thanks. All righty. We're going to move on with announcements, and then we'll get to the other stories. I only have one announcement tonight, but this one's local. Hello. Local. Got to cover local. Let's go ahead and give out this announcement, and shout out to Reggie from Boston. What's up, fam? There is a reparations meeting, informational and listening session. This is in Boston, October 26th. It looks like it starts at 10:30 a.m. They start early. Q&A will be with the ADOS founder, Dr. Yvette Carnell. She's been on here before, on the show before. Special invited guests. Oh, Tania Fernandez Anderson is going to be there. Okay, I'm familiar with her. She's one of the district counselors here in Boston. And special panel testimony on urban renewal. This is led by former state senator Diane Wilkerson. That is Saturday, ladies and gentlemen, October 26th, 10:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. That is located at Fellows Hall, Boston Public Library, the Roxbury branch, 149 Dudley Street, Roxbury, Massachusetts, 02119. Limited capacity, RSVP soon. So if you want to attend, don't forget that. And, oh, wait a minute. Did he put a link to, he put a QR code. Did he put a link to RSVP? Oh, okay. I don't see a link to RSVP, but he put a QR code. Maybe, Eric, maybe we can put the link to the tweet in the chat. So that way people can just go to the tweet and copy the QR code. Yeah, so it's a full day schedules listed here. Morning session, reparation, definitions, and timelines. That's important for people who may not be aware of what this actually means. Actually, this will be really great for, this will be really great for Dr. Shiva to go to. Huh. All right. Afternoon session, reparations, the elephants in the room. So that's where I believe Yvette Carnell was a part of the afternoon session. So yeah, this is an all-day event. So check it out, guys, if you're in the Boston area. And Eric, can we put the link to the tweet in the chat? Because that way people can get that QR code. Thank you. Yeah. Big things happening, and sometimes a lot of the things that are happening are local. But if you're I would say if you're in the New England area, still feel free to come that way. And thank you for that. So Eric put the link to that tweet in the chat. Definitely, again, you need to RSVP to that. So make sure you sign up. Yeah. Fat bottom girls, you make the rockin' world go round. Okay. Let's get on to the next stories, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of Queen there. A little bit of Queen. So peep this, fam. Oh, thank you, Roger. You should invite Shiva to get some educational reparations. Thank you for that, Roger. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. I want to get to the story here. I thought this was really interesting. So recently, Nina Turner was on Breaking Points, and she was asked, how she feels about the attacks that are towards Dr. Jill Stein. I think you guys need to see this. I was really impressed. I was surprised by this. Nina Turner, she's a Democrat. She's a part of the Democratic Party. So you might be surprised with some of the things that she said here about Jill Stein. And then I want to show you the new attack that is happening against Jill Stein now on social media, and where this may have actually started from. So let's go ahead and get started with this clip here from Breaking Points. Nina Turner sounding off the alarm here.
I wanted to get you quickly to weigh in on something else that's a very interesting development, which is that Democrats have now cut an ad against Dr. Jill Stein, who, of course, is the Green Party nominee. This is the first that they've really paid any attention to her, and I think it's very interesting and potentially very revealing. So let's take a look at that ad, and then I'll get your thoughts on the other side.
Jill Stein, Green Party candidate for president. So why are Trump's close allies helping her? Stein was key to Trump's 2016 wins in battleground states. She's not sorry she helped Trump win. That's why a vote for Stein is really a vote for Trump.
Jill Stein, I like her very much. You know why? She takes 100% from them.
I'm sorry. I showed you guys that ad on here before. It's crazy how desperate the Democratic Party is getting. Crazy.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
So I don't know how much money is behind this ad, so I don't know how widespread it is in circulation or how much it's just an internet ad, but to me, very noteworthy that they decided to cut this ad, and I think potentially very revealing of some concern, especially maybe in the state of Michigan, that people who are disgusted with the Biden-Harris enabling of a genocide in Gaza are looking for a candidate who opposes that.
The polling data shows it, Crystal. Dr. Stein is winning in the Arab American community in Michigan. That ad makes my skin crawl as well, because the people who want to vote for Dr. Jill Stein, we assuming that if Dr. Stein was not on the ballot, that they would be voting for Democrats. And that's a wrong assumption. They're voting for Dr. Jill Stein or the Green Party because the Green Party puts up a different message, a different platform, and a different vision.
This is what people really need to hear. So again, I will say, I've had my issues with Nina Turner, like choosing to stay in the Democratic Party. I think she needs to leave the Democratic Party. But I do appreciate her, this defense here for Jill Stein, because this cannot be said enough. I get really tired of Democrats and Republicans assuming that if we are not voting for this third party candidate, or if this third party candidate did not exist, then we would be supporting that Democrat candidate and that Republican candidate. And Nina is correct when she says, like, that's not true. For most of us, that is not true. There may be a few that are like, oh, okay, well, but for the most part, most of us know. And what's interesting is it's not even just Jill Stein. Chase Oliver is on the ballot in almost every single state. I think there's 2 states I saw recently on the map that he doesn't have ballot access. I think there's 2, but Chase Oliver is a libertarian, is on the ballot in almost every single state. So he has more ballot access than Jill Stein does. Now, I know you guys are like, he's a libertarian, so some of them are going to probably end up supporting, Trump or whatever anyway. But Chase Oliver is a little bit different, because one of the things I noticed about him, again, he's very critical of what Israel is doing. He was an activist for the Black Lives Matter movement. It's a little bit different than what you may be used to with libertarian candidates. But there's him. Cornel West is still on the ballot in a certain number of states as a write-in candidate, and on the ballot in others. There's also Claudia de la Cruz with PSL. See, I think they're sleeping on some of the other candidates as well that also may pull support from Arab American voters and Muslim voters as well. So it's not just Jill Stein. Not all of Muslim voters that are voting third party are voting for Jill. Some of them are supporting Claudia de la Cruz. Some of them are supporting Cornel West. So these are things just to keep in mind. Let's go back in.
For this country. And yet it is very telling. They must be scared. And to conflate her voter saying that she is helping Donald J. Trump when nothing can be further from the truth. Again, this is the United States of America, so I thought. I also thought that people have agency in their ability to vote. That's what I thought. But the Democrats, by this ad and how they also comported themselves in the primary by locking everybody out of the primary, is showing that they themselves don't believe in small d democracy as they profess to. This is wrong, and it takes away the agency of voters, and it makes it seem like voters don't know what they want and what they're doing. You poor little voters, we're going to tell you what to do and how to vote. It's wrong. It's menacing what the Democrats.
And I think some people may have forgotten, because it's been quite a bit, But remember, Nina Turner ran for Congress twice, right? So she ran in that special election against Shontel Brown, and she was in the lead in the polls there. And then there was a lot of money that came in from AIPAC there, and there was a lot of pressure on her to support Israel. I remember all this. And then she ran again against Shontel Brown, not as the gap between her and Shontel the second time was smaller, or excuse me, was wider than it was the first time. But again, so she knows like what that now she hasn't run as a third party candidate or independent candidate, but she was also a part of Bernie Sanders campaigns too. When she remembers the smears that Bernie Sanders got and Bernie Sanders supporters got who didn't want to support Hillary Clinton or didn't want to support Joe Biden. So she was around for all of that. So, and Bernie was running as a Democrat. So this is the thing I want to tell you guys. It's not just them attacking third-party independent candidates, although they will do so heavily, but they also attack Democrat candidates that don't fit the status quo. So that's why they attacked someone like Bernie so heavily. You get up there, you start talking about universal health care and free, pre-K and all this kind of stuff. They're like, oh, no. The billionaires won't like that. No. Billionaires say, no, we don't like that. So they'll fight against them too. I remember the smears they came out against with Bernie Sanders. I remember the attack ads they had against him, just blatant lies. So you don't have to really be a third party or independent candidate for the Democratic Party to attack you. You can run in the Democratic Party and the Democrat leadership will still attack you if you're not a part of the status quo. Isn't that crazy?
Party is doing. And I'm really ashamed that my party would stoop to this level to say that anybody that Dr. Jill Stein and the Green Party is in any way enabling President Donald J. Trump. If they want to talk about donations, let's talk about donations here. When I ran for Congress, a lot of Republicans jumped into the special election in Cleveland, Ohio, in a solidly Democratic district and donated to my opponent. Okay, so don't bring it here. When they talk about AIPAC money, AIPAC funds both Democrats and Republicans equally.
Yeah, you can't say that part loud enough, folks, because people always say, "Oh, it's a right-leaning, a lobby interest group," but they fund both of those parties.
So don't bring it here in terms of talking about Dr. Stein and Dr. Ware and the Green Party in this way. I believe in democracy. I am a Democrat, but I don't answer. I don't worship this party. Democracy is more important to me. And so them coming at Dr. Jill Stein shows, and the Green Party shows how weak they are right now. And it is also the antithesis of what they say. So now they can't chastise the Republicans anymore about being a threat to democracy, because what the Democratic Party is doing right now is a threat to democracy. Voters want choice in the United States of America. We should not just have a duopoly in the United States of America.
And this just goes to show you again with the Democratic Party, because we can't say this enough. As much as they talk about we got to protect democracy, to Nina Turner's point, they're not really trying to protect democracy. They're trying to protect the status quo. So let's change that phrase for the Democrats, guys. Can you do that with me? Can we say it all together? Because like when you hear them say, we got to protect democracy, you have to push back on that and say, no, what you're really saying is you have to protect the status quo. Because one thing we have to remember, even when it comes to liberals are fine with the status quo. They want a couple of reforms, but they don't want to dismantle the system. They don't want to change the system. They want the system that is there to still exist with just a couple of reforms. So you really got to understand what they're asking for. But the way that they're trying to, like, they pulled third-party candidates off the ballot, and they've done this before, it's not new. But the way that they've gone about doing this and trying to trick candidates and giving them incorrect paperwork, or just saying your signatures are invalid, so you're out of here, even though they're wet signatures. It is very disgusting and very troubling. And you can tell that this is not just about not just about Jill Stein. It's about protecting the status quo. It's not even just, I don't even want to say it's even just about Kamala Harris winning anymore. I don't even think it's about necessarily Kamala Harris winning anymore. I think it's about protecting the status quo. And for them, the status quo is not Donald Trump, because, you know, Trump kind of went off script. You know, Donald Trump said some things aloud that you're only supposed to say behind closed doors. So Donald Trump let some things kind of fall out of his mouth. Now people were like, okay, you're not supposed to let people know the game. So even though he's a billionaire, they don't even consider him to be status quo, because he pulled the cover off. He let people see what was really going on. And then there's the whole January 6th thing. So they're like, oh no, this guy we can't have. So there's that. So I don't even think it's about Kamala winning anymore, guys. I just think it's about them protecting the status quo. And third party candidates don't protect the status quo. Grassroots campaigns don't protect the status quo.
They got better ideas. They certainly raising more money. Why are you suing to get people like Dr. West off the ballot, and suing to get people like Dr. Stein and Dr. Ware from the Green Party off the ballot? If my party is all that, they certainly getting all the money. They get all the airplay on mainstream media. So what y'all scared of?
Yeah.
That the American people will see different choices, and then they will make a different choice.
Couldn't agree more.
We should compete straight up.
Yeah. You know,
but obviously they don't feel that way.
The funny thing, and Dr. Stein pointed this out on Twitter, is that while they're accusing her of like being supported by Republicans, Kamala Harris is running around campaigning with Liz Cheney and touting her support.
Oh my God.
Dick Cheney's are like,
Thank you for that example. Honored to have Dick Cheney endorsement, campaigning with Senator Liz Cheney, but progressives like us? Oh no.
No.
Oh no.
But again, that goes back to protecting the status quo, guys. That goes back to protecting the status quo, because think about it. If they're fine with Kamala Harris working with Liz Cheney or getting an endorsement from Dick Cheney, that means they're again, protecting the status quo. Dick Cheney is a warmonger and a neocon. So that's status quo. They want that. They want to keep that. So they're totally fine with that. So it's okay for Kamala Harris to work side by side with Republicans, but you can't vote for Jill Stein. It's okay for Kamala Harris to work side by side with Republicans, but they're out here releasing attack ads against Jill Stein, saying that she's getting money from Republicans. Didn't Kamala Harris get money from Republicans? Make it make sense. And these are the kind of things I think people can kind of just overlook and miss if they're not really paying attention. But this is crazy and wild, fam.
Haven't seen that.
They rather have Republicans.
That's right.
Than to have progressives. That is very tough.
Well, we see how it's working out for them. The voice may be hoarse, but as always, the message comes through loud and clear. Senator Nina Turner, great.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Oh my God, I appreciate you both so much, and just love that you give opportunity for other voices that just don't walk a fine line. You both know I'm a lover of people. I'm a lover of justice, and I do believe that folks who have elected titles, they owe the people that they serve to really lift them. And God knows people in this country really do need this right now.
Yeah.
So thank you both.
Great.
Okay, so Nina Turner there on Breaking Points, you know, she came out and she defended Jill Stein there. And of course, Jill Stein's running a third party. But something else happened, I noticed too, because Nina Turner did speak at the ADOS convention, and she had some things to say about the Democratic Party at the ADOS convention. I want to show you this as well. I don't know how Nina Turner is feeling about how she's going to move politically. I don't know. She is a Democrat. She is a part of the Democratic Party. I haven't seen her leave the Democratic Party. I know at one point she did speak at the People's Party forum, but People's Party turned out to be a complete mess, disaster. It started, I think, with progressive policies, and it started to move towards a populist thing, and they lost a lot of people that were a part of the board when that happened, as well as crazy other things that went down with the People's Party. But at the ADOS convention, I want you to hear, she said something else about the Democratic Party here, about them criticizing Black male voters.
My sisters, I am saying to you that if any party lifts us but leaves our men behind, we don't want it. We don't want it. We don't want it.
So that was Nina Turner there at the ADOS convention. And she said, if any party wants to, I guess, basically, elevate the women, but, not the men or whatever, we don't need them. We don't want them. And she's calling out the Democratic Party in the way that they have belittled Black male voters for not simping for their queen. These people are fucking crazy. But what's even, I don't know what Nina Turner is going to do, later on. I really don't know. But at some point, who knows? I do know she is a Democrat and she is a part of the Democratic Party. I don't foresee her leaving it, but I don't know Nina Turner. I've never met her. I've never interviewed her. I don't know. But the fact that she defended Jill Stein, I think that was a great thing. And I think more Democrats should be doing that, by the way. Like you would think the so-called progressive or squad members would also be defending Jill Stein. But no, AOC has to come out and do these smear pieces or whatever. It's such a freaking sellout. It's ridiculous. Because now there's even a new attack ad on Jill Stein. And I want to bring this up. And we're going to give shout out to Roger Meadows because Roger has been keeping me informed. Check this out, guys. So this is Lee Smith. You know who Lisa Smith is? Liz Smith is the woman that attacked the women that were accusing Andrew Cuomo of sexual harassment. This is the woman who came out and attacked those women. So she's a Democrat Party loyalist to the T, right? So don't even come with me about protecting women when you got her doing things like that. Check this out. Here's the newest one, guys. Former KKK leader David Duke has endorsed Dr. Jill Stein for president. So you see the new smear tactic that they're using now. Former KKK leader David Duke endorses Jill Stein for president. So listen to this, guys. So they got the audio here. Notice you don't see David Duke on video. It's audio. Listen to this.
This is David Duke. I'm going to shock a number of people and some of my own supporters, maybe. I'm going to do what's good for white people, Europeans. I endorse for president of the United States, Green Party candidate, Dr. Jill Stein. This is David Duke. I'm going to shock.
So, yeah. So you see what's happening, right? Now, I don't know if that's him or not. We don't see his face. He's not on video. It does sound like his voice could have been AI. Don't know. But what's interesting here is this is obviously another smear tactic, but I'm going to show you something else too. This is not the first time this has happened. Peep this, fam. Shout out to Roger. Shout out to Roger Meadows for this because I didn't know. I want to take you back to 2012. Not too long ago. Remember Charles Barron? Raise your hand if you remember Charles Barron, right? Charles Barron ran against Hakeem Jeffries. How many of you knew that? Charles Barron ran against Hakeem Jeffries. And Roger Meadows was telling me that apparently during that time, at first, Charles Barron was beating Hakeem Jeffries in the polls. Then all of a sudden, this smear attempt comes out against Charles Barron. Now, Charles Barron was a Black Panther. He was also pro-Palestine. So David Duke endorses Charles Barron. This is June 21st of 2012. Everybody following me here? This has been done before. In an earlier post about NJDC PAC's effort to rally opposition against Charles Barron in New York's 8th District Democratic primary, there's a reference to Barron being endorsed by David Duke. Yes, it's true. Duke gave Barron his imprimatur Wednesday in a train wreck video that you can't avert your eyes from as the former KKK Grand Wizard and Senate candidate delivers his reasons for supporting a New York City-based African-American candidate for Congress. So why is this important, ladies and gentlemen? This is important because you have to realize that the Democratic Party has done this before. This isn't new. Charles Barron lost that race, And that's how Hakeem Jeffries got that seat. I want to say this again. Charles Barron was beating Hakeem Jeffries in the polls. Next thing you know, this attack comes out. David Duke endorses Charles Barron, and Charles Barron ends up losing. And Hakeem Jeffries wins that seat, goes on to make a political career for himself, is very much status quo, and is now the minority speaker of the House. What I think could be happening here, it almost kind of seems like David Duke is some type of low-key Democrat operative. Don't you think it's weird? This has happened with more than one candidate. And a lot of people who saw that post on Twitter probably have no idea who Charles Barron is, probably have no idea that this has been done before. Don't you think it's weird? Someone who is a white supremacist would be endorsing a black man. Charles Barron was a black man. Don't you think it's weird that someone who's a white supremacist would endorse a Jewish woman? Jill Stein is Jewish. David Duke doesn't like Jewish people either. So it sounds like to me, David Duke is some type of op. We got to pay attention to all the things that are happening around us, and we have to always look back to see if it's been done before, especially when it comes to politics, when it comes to smear tactics. We see the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, they play the same games over and over. And it's so interesting how quickly people will forget, but they've been doing this before. Think about it, folks. And it's so funny to me. Like, a lot of people were just like, oh my God, we knew it. We knew it. See, she's a supremacist. She's a supremacist. Jill Stein is Jewish. Jill Stein is pro-Palestinian. Like, people don't even think. Like, blue, no matter who, people are just taking this and they're running with it. They're not even using their brains. That's the cult of the two-party system. Let's go to some of the comments over here. I don't know what to say, guys. I don't know. Let's go up here. Shout out to Alcaz, who's been a member for 7 months. Did you see Vanguard attack Brianna Joy? What is up with Mehdi attacking her as well? No, I didn't. I don't watch that. No, and I would advise you guys to be very careful about getting caught up in that type of stuff, because it's not productive. It's not getting us anywhere. And then you need to ask yourself, why do they keep making these attacks on the people who are further left? Why do they keep making these attacks on the people who are not willing to be vote blue no matter who? Think about that. Let's go to thank you, Black Progress, for the super sticker. Thank you, Sparky. If they can't invent hundreds of billions of dollars to give to Ukraine and Israel, neither of which should concern the U.S., money for reparations should be easy if they wanted to. 40 acres and a mule, 2024. I hear you, Sparky. Katie, Chase Oliver did repeat the same October 7th lie. Oh, he did? That motherfucker. Pardon me. Thank you, all's one same. David Duke endorses Jill Stein. Parlay that into coalition building. Thank you, Sparky. Build a better world with bricks. Thank you, Carlette. I am a USAF Gulf War veteran. We get the memo before the news. I knew that World War III is around the corner. This administration was always itching for a war. Evil. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Giovanni. Please call them oligarchs, not billionaires. Well, okay, okay, Giovanni. Soccer Papa says, I love Sabby, new background, very loungy. Thank you. I wanted to be a little bit more chill. It was really bright in here, you guys. Like, you have no idea. Well, you do have an idea. It was really bright in here when I do the live stream show. And sometimes, like, my eyes, because the light was like, bam, right there, like my eyes afterwards would be like, whoa. Thank you so much, Sterling. They're using Ella Imhoff for Kamala. Charles XCX collabing with her with Tory Burch Charlie tweeted Kamala is brat in August. It's so cringe. Also, Urban Outfitters collabing with Ella Socks Double Soul. Interesting. I didn't know Urban Outfitters was still popping like that. Thank you for the super sticker, Eric. Thank you. Thank you, Jasmine. I can't believe that's Duke on video. He's KKK to the core. There's no way he's endorsing a Jewish woman. Interesting. Thank you, Resurrect. Jill bombed on an interview yesterday with Jason Black. Black Authority channel. I have to watch the whole thing. I haven't seen the whole thing. Thank you, Sparky. In their heyday, 100% of KKK were Democrats, so David Duke could be left over from that. That's a good point. I didn't think about that, Sparky. Thank you, Lana. Wow, I had no idea David Duke was an op. Thank you, Sabby. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. And thank you, American Man. David Duke, the Klansman, a Democrat. What a shocker. Yeah, it just feels oppy. Just feels oppy to me, fam. Yeah. All right. If you haven't had a chance to do so, ladies and gentlemen, please be sure to smash that like button. Thank you very much. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. Yeah. Based. Okay. We're moving on to, I think, what is going to be the story of the night. Can we get into that? Yeah. Gonna be in the rhythm of the night. Into the party light. To get about the worries of your life. Isn't that how it goes? I don't know. Dancing the rhythm of the night. Anywho, let's get into this. So after Barack Obama decided to scold Black men who didn't want to support Kamala Harris, it appears that Kamala Harris has responded by releasing a plan for Black men. So part of that is her Black agenda, and underneath that agenda, she has a plan for Black men. Before we dive into that, because I think these policies that she's kind of laid out are pretty weak, we'll get there. She also had an interview with the Shade Room, and the commentator here in this clip is going to ask her, how did she feel about the comments that Barack Obama said? And I think we need to start with this, and then we will transition into the policies there. Let's go ahead and bring up this clip here.
Obama, you know him?
I do know him. I do.
He recently in Pittsburgh.
President,
let's get it right.
Yes.
Yeah, President. President Barack Obama. He was campaigning for you in Pittsburgh before some students at the University of Pittsburgh, which is my alma mater. And he said some things that really ruffled some feathers in the news. He said, it makes me think you aren't just feeling the idea of having a woman as a president. You're coming up with other alternatives and other reasons for that. We have not seen the same kind of energy and turnout in all corners of our neighborhoods and community as we saw when I was running. So when you hear those words, I'm sure you were briefed on the situation. A former Ohio State Senator, Nina Turner, she came out on CNN and said, why are you putting Black men up against the wall and pressuring them into something that possibly, they don't want to do if they want to vote for you or not. So my question to you is, do you think that what President Obama said was the right thing to say?
Let me tell you, I am very proud to have the support of President Obama. And
pause. Let's remind ourselves before she starts talking, because we will forget. The question is, again, do you approve of what Barack Obama was saying about Black male voters? Now let's go back into the video.
And that he is out traveling to talk with voters about what is at stake in this election. I'm very proud to have his support. What is also important is, one, to understand, like, as I said, I intend to earn the vote of everyone, including Black men. Two, pay attention to everything that President Obama talked about, because he also talked about, at length, the danger of Donald Trump. The danger of Donald Trump in terms of somebody who has said that they would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies, somebody who has referred to Black immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, legal immigrants, as though they would eat their pets, constantly perpetuating tropes. Remember, Donald Trump, who said in Charlottesville, there are good people on each side. So I think it's really important to focus on the stakes of this election. And there are two choices. And I ask everyone to look at the background, look at the work, look at the words, to have a sense of how you then choose to use the power of your vote on election day. But
okay. She hasn't finished responding yet, but the question was, do you agree with the sentiment that Barack Obama made about Black men not supporting your campaign? And she somehow decided the way to answer this question was to start talking about Donald Trump. What does that have to do with anything? Yes, some Black men may support Donald Trump, but some of them may stay home, Kamala. Like, that's the thing. That doesn't mean if they're not supporting you that they're supporting Donald Trump. Some of them are supporting third party. Some of them are supporting the couch. It's just, do you support what Obama said about Black male voters? Now let's go back in. Does she get there?
there is a very big difference between Donald Trump and how I will be president of the United States. And I cannot impress upon people enough that this is somebody, Donald Trump, who intends to take us backward. Look, this man won't even debate me a second time. He won't even debate me a second time. He didn't do the 60 Minutes interview, which I believe every presidential candidate for president of the United States has done.
Okay, so again, what does this have to do with what Barack Obama said about your, campaign and black male voters?
He will not take up the important responsibility that every presidential candidate has done of showing their medical records. Okay?
Which you just did.
Which I have done. Of course I've done it. I have done that. I have challenged him to another debate. I have given up my medical records. I did the 60 Minutes interview. And one has to ask, what is Donald Trump trying to hide?
Yeah, don't really know what that had to do with what Obama said. So there's, I don't think she wanted to criticize Barack Obama. I don't know what Obama has on people, but this is crazy, right? So she jumps into that in particular. And then there's another issue that's brought up during that interview. And this is about the one of the policies that she has for the black male agenda for her platform. And this guy really called it out. And I was thinking the same thing. I said, I hope I'm not alone. DJL. Man, the fact that she went on the Shade Room, a platform specifically for Black people, and tried to pitch $20K for a website as the golden ticket to build wealth is straight up crazy work. Let's get to that video here. Jesus Christ, I was surprised by this one.
To $50,000. And included in that, knowing that a lot of startup businesses then have overhead around, for example, what they need to do to buy equipment. For those who are startup and don't have the connections historically, a $20,000 forgivable loan for them to be able, for example, to pay to set up a really good website. So that their business
It might
could then
intersect with
thrive.
PPP loans and how, a mess, some people were involved with that, the PPP loans and fraud and all of that.
Hold on. Bro, this she on the Shade Room. Hey, bro. Look, man. The fact she just said that is insane. And I ain't pro-Trump, but god damn.
Yeah, and I think that needs to be said. Let me give you $20,000 so that you can have a website, and that'll be very profitable. Honey, I got a website. Like it don't. I don't even want to look at the chat just yet. I got a website. Are you serious? So let's take a look at the agenda and let's really break it down. Okay, so this is the Black agenda that Kamala Harris has recently added to her platform. Kamala Harris will deliver for Black men. Donald Trump is a serious threat to the lives of Black men. Okay. So let's get into her agenda. So first she has the Black agenda, and then she has the agenda for Black men. Let's start with Black men. Black men deserve a president who will deliver on promises. Okay. So let's get to this part. Oh, did I go to the Trump part? Did I jump ahead? Oh, here we go. Black men will, Vice President Harris will deliver for Black men. Sorry about that. So here's the plan, folks. All right. This agenda includes providing 1 million loans that are fully forgivable to Black entrepreneurs and others to start a business. So hold on. Wasn't this already part of her economic plan? You'll notice this with the Black man plan, that she just pulled some of these things she pulled that were already pieces of part of her economic plan and put it under the. Oh man. Let me go on. Hold on. Now, I want you to highlight the word loans, because she said that 1 million loans that are fully forgivable. So why aren't they called grants? Why is it called loan? A loan is something that you need to pay back, right? So maybe I'm being picky, but these are things that I pay attention to. 2, champion education, training, and mentorship programs that help Black men get good paying jobs in high demand industries and lead their communities, including pathways to become teachers. So let's go back to the top. Championing education, training, and mentorship programs. So what do you mean when you say championing education? So I would have said, making sure that these public schools are properly funded, because the reality is, as long as property taxes are connected to public school funding, this is always going to be an issue. What does that mean? Okay, Sabby don't like the fuzzy language. No, Sabby not like. Let's go in again. Training and mentorship programs that help Black men get good paying jobs in high demand industries and lead their communities. What do you mean by good paying? What is considered good pay, right? So you'll see the difference when you look at like someone's platform, like Jill Stein's platform, where she actually breaks down like dollar amounts, etc. What do you mean good pay? 2, high demand industries. What industries are you referring to? Then it goes into lead their communities, including pathways to become teachers. Okay, so a mentor program. That's it. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to make this very just plain as day to understand. A mentor program. Hell, they got that at the youth rec centers. A mentor program. Let's go on to number 3. Oh, man. Whoa. Yeah, and on purpose, Hui. Vague references and on purpose. Okay, let's go on to number 3. Supporting a regulatory framework for cryptocurrency and other digital assets so Black men who invest in and own these assets are protected. So do you remember what I've told you before? By a lot of times, like legislation that's passed usually has corporate interests attached to it. So crypto, right? Why is that important when it comes to Kamala Harris? Check this out. Did you know about this? Check it out, fam. Harris PAC 1 million contribution from Ripple's Chris Larson shows crypto industry warming. So Chris Larson, this is a crypto dude. He donated $1 million to Kamala Harris's campaign. So this is why I say follow where the money comes from. Okay, follow the money. So is this something that she's doing to help Black men? Or is she also adding this in because she received $1 million from Chris Larson, who's a crypto guy? Let me finish and I'll tell you what is also missing from here, which is like bullshit. Check this out. 4, launching a national health equity initiative focused on Black men that addresses sickle cell disease, diabetes, mental health, prostate cancer, and other health challenges that disproportionately impact them. Launching a national health equity initiative. So I'm all for healthcare, help, and improvement, but the reality is we should have universal healthcare. So yeah, there are certain diseases that like Black men do have, a higher rate when it comes to certain diseases, Black women too, as well. But the reality is we need universal health care. Now, I want to point to another thing here too. Some of these illnesses, like sickle cell, you can be born with that. Diabetes, you can be born with it too, but some is developed later in life and things like that. Some of these things have to deal with preventative screening measures. And then some of it has to deal with environment and food. And the reality is, as I've said before, I noticed one thing about this is that she doesn't address the issue of food deserts. And this is very important because food deserts are they tend to exist in lower income or poor neighborhoods. And this is why a lot of times people have bad nutrition because they don't have a grocery store in that area, but they do have like a Rite Aid or a little convenience store that sells food, but it's usually not a lot of produce or vegetables and things like that. We have them in Massachusetts as well. And so you end up eating unhealthy. Even if you live in neighborhoods that do have grocery stores, the reality is junk food is cheaper. So instead of all this launching a national health equity initiative, that's not preventative. That's trying to treat something once it already happened. If you want to prevent it, then we have to have a serious, talk about nutrition and universal health care and a living wage. Do you see how all this at the end of the day, it ties back to having a living wage? If you don't have a living wage, obviously people are going to buy the food that is cheaper, that they can afford, not the food that's more expensive. And when we're talking about fruits and vegetables, we're talking about like organic fruits and vegetables, because even some of the fruits and vegetables in the grocery store are all different types of chemicals that have been sprayed on them. So it goes back to a living wage. This is another example of them trying to put a Band-Aid on the wound instead of healing the wound. Universal health care, living wage. And the last one, legalizing recreational marijuana and creating opportunities for Black Americans to succeed in this new industry. So here's the thing, fam. I don't even smoke. And I agree with legalizing marijuana. I've agreed with this for years. We legalized it here in Massachusetts. I think it's ridiculous in this country or any country that marijuana is illegal. I think that's ridiculous, or that it's even criminalized, right? But here's the thing. How can you mention legalizing recreational marijuana and not mention anything on this platform about the criminal justice system? When you look at these policies that Kamala Harris has laid out for Black men, how in the hell can you not mention the criminal justice system when Black men disproportionately are incarcerated at a higher rate than any other male group? But I guess we shouldn't expect that from a cop, Miss Prosecutor Kamala Harris, because she's pro-police and she wants to give the police more money, and she loved locking Black men up. That's a no-brainer to me. I didn't understand that at all. There's nothing on this platform about criminal justice. We're talking about marijuana, crypto. Kamala Harris wants to just give Black men weed and crypto and then go sit somewhere and shut up. I'm thinking of all the other things that you could have put to be a part of this. There's nothing on this platform about food deserts, what I just told you about. Are we serious? Criminal justice system, the incarceration rate, The school to prison pipeline, which is higher for black males than it is for black women. How could you not put this on there? How could you leave this off? So what you have here, let me just bring this down, is a weak milquetoast platform for black men to basically shut black men up and say, okay, I'm giving you something. Are you happy now? There's no reparations. How do you not? What are you doing? What do you mean? There's no reparations on this platform. So I don't know who's advising her, but this is so weak. And that was my complaint. And another thing I want to say to you, and I want you guys to really get this. Don't you find it a little bit strange that Kamala Harris did not even have this a part of her platform when she launched her platform? Now, she had policies on her platform for immigration to help immigration issues in this country, to help women. She didn't have a black agenda on her platform. Nothing. She put this together 3 weeks prior to the election because she saw how she's struggling with the black male vote. And it's not just black males. We can get to that in just a second. So she's like, let's throw something together to win them over. That's how little she cares about you. That's how unimportant black male voters were to Kamala Harris. Look at everyone else that she put before you. She mentioned women, of course, reproductive health, and I'm not saying you should not have those things. You should. Women, reproductive health. She mentioned immigration, police officers. Like, go through the platform. All these people that she put before black men or black women, this is what she did. You were not important to her. The only reason why she created a platform for you now is because she needs your vote. And let's be real. Do you think she's going to do this? Did Joe Biden forgive those HBCU students of their student loans like he promised? No. He just said that to get their votes. And I see people falling for it. I like online, people are like, whoa, she came up with something. Yeah, she did something. Woo. She puts you at the bottom of the list, just like she puts Palestinians at the bottom of the list when she's talking about the Middle East. Israel's always first. And you see who she put first when it came to her platform. You weren't even on it. Not even on it. This is so weak. My little sister can come up with a platform better than this. This is what she gives you. Go smoke some weed and get some crypto. Because she think this is all what black men, and she said she met with black men. It's like, oh, well, this is what we need to give them. We need to give them some weed and crypto. Now, it's not even just, and I want to show you this. It's not even just that. If you made the comparison, let's bring this up here. Look at the comparison between Kamala Harris's black agenda and Jill Stein's black agenda. Actually, let me pull this out here because it's bigger this way. Look at this. Reparations, restore voting rights, redress healthcare disparities, eliminate food deserts. That's one of the big ones. End the water crisis. Stop polluting black communities. Justice for Black Farmers Act. Let's pause here for a second. Kamala Harris didn't even mention anything about Flint, about black communities being poisoned by pipelines, environmental poisoning, which decreases the life expectancy of that neighborhood. She didn't even mention that. Like, I don't know. This is why I say, like, when people say she's not of the community, it's like, how do you not know this is an issue? I don't know. Stop cop cities. You see this? These are things that are going to directly affect black communities. Community control of police. Ban white nationalists from police. Invest in HBCUs. Now, she'll probably do that one. Justice for Cancer Alley Act. Reinvest from policing and prisons to community building programs. So notice how Jill Stein's Black Liberation Platform has a number of criminal justice issues that need to be revised and need to be fixed. And Kamala Harris mentions nothing about criminal justice when you have all these Black men being charged at higher rates, being locked up at higher rates for the same crimes that their white male peers do. And you say nothing about criminal justice. Smoke some weed and sell some crypto. But it's not just Black men. No, not just Black men. It is also Black women. Also Black women. They called it out on CNN, ladies and gentlemen. Check this out.
And sometimes there's a trend line that I never noticed before and make me go, whoa. This is one of them, all right? This is the Democratic margin among Black men under the age of 45 in presidential elections. You go back to November of 2012, what do you see? You see Obama by 81. Clinton only won him by 63. Then we're all the way down to Biden last time around by 53. A tremendous drop already. And then you take a look at the average of the most recent polls, and Kamala Harris is up by only 41 points.
So what you are seeing overall is that since Barack Obama, there has been a decrease in Black men supporting the Democrat nominee. Even Hillary Clinton, I don't know how Hillary's ahead of you when it comes to the Black male vote, but even Hillary Clinton is ahead of you. So this is a trend. And I want to say this, guys, okay? Because if Joe Biden had stayed in the race, I believe he would also be lower than that 53 points where he's at right now as well. I think he would be lower too, because it's a trend. And you're seeing this. This is why when I did that rant the other day that I did about Barack Obama, this is why I said this is all goes back to you, because you were the big hope for the Black community and you sold us out for Wall Street. So after you let Black communities lose their wealth and also get poisoned, this is what happens over time.
That is about half the margin that Obama won them by back in November of 2012. And this, I think, is, when Barack Obama goes in last week when he was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, essentially talking to young Black men, he made it seem like it was a Kamala Harris specific problem. This is part of a long-standing trend of young Black men moving away from the Democratic Party, and Kamala Harris is just the latest to face that magnitude of younger Black men going towards the Republicans.
That was most interesting here is the trend line and where some of the biggest drops happen or already happened in this case. How about Black men overall?
How about Black men overall? It's part of the same picture. We're looking once again, if younger Black men, it looks like the worst Democratic performance since 1960, since JFK versus Richard Nixon. It's the same thing among Black men overall. Again, part of a similar trend, but here actually the drop-off isn't as dramatic, right? Barack Obama won him by 85, then you see 71 with Clinton, 69, Biden, basically the same thing, holding steady. But here, again, very, very weak, only a 54-point margin. Now, again, still winning them by a large margin, but considerably lower than what we're used to, certainly considerably lower what we had during the Obama years. The bottom line is Kamala Harris with younger Black men and then Black men overall putting in historically weak performance for a Democratic
Is
candidate.
she getting any relief with Black women?
All right. So, we're talking about the trend line, right? And Black women, look, she's doing better with Black women than she is doing among Black men. But here, there isn't a trend line almost until we get to Kamala Harris. So
pause for a minute. So now we're seeing something else when it comes to Black women. Obama plus 93, Hillary plus 93. So they stayed, pretty firm there, right? Those two back to back. But there was a drop a little bit with Biden, with Black women. And now look at Kamala Harris. So I just want to jump in here for a second and say, so all the people who were pointing their fingers at Black men, by the way, you shouldn't be pointing your fingers at Black voters at all, because the Democratic Party can't win without the Black vote. So stop. And then two, if you look at the numbers overall, which I've shown before on the show, it is white men and white women who are not coming out to support these candidates. The numbers show that. It shows that Black men heavily supported, even Hillary for the misogyny thing. Black men supported Hillary Clinton more than any other male group. So it sounds like to me, the people you need to be talking to is you need to talk to white men and white women. I said the same thing about Stacey Abrams when she complained when she was running for governor second time around. These black men aren't coming to support me. But after the race, the data showed that was false and that black men overwhelmingly supported Stacey Abrams. You know who didn't come out and support Stacey Abrams? It was white women. So this right here tells you something about the Democratic
Party.
This
is a black margin among black women. Look, Obama won them by 93, very large margin. Clinton won them by 93, a very large margin. Biden did a little bit worse at 85, but then you look here and you get a 71-point margin. Now, again, these are large margins, but the bottom line is when you're talking about the base of the Democratic Party, you would think that Kamala Harris would do very well among black women based upon history, and of course she would be the first black woman president, but she's actually doing the worst for a Democratic candidate among black women since 1960, if this holds, John.
And again, when you look at the numbers here, whenever you come in, looking at the trends is probably the most important thing.
You got it, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Very, very telling there. Eric, did you have another link for me? Let me know and I can put that up. Thank you there. Thank you, Roger. Sabrina, if you can play this, it goes along with this segment. You are doing so well. An elevation of the no names. I really do think the family would appreciate what she has to say. Oh, thank you. Okay, let me add this as well. It says, I'm too poor to be a Democrat. Okay, let's hear this. Interesting.
I did not grow up a middle-class child, and I am not a middle-class person right now. When I talk about the struggle, I'm talking about I did not grow up a middle-class child, and I am not a middle-class person right now. When I talk about the struggle, I'm talking about what's real. And I know most of the Democrats, liberals, and leftists are out here just living their best life, so much so that they run up to our comment sections and try to beat us with bootstraps. I did not grow up a middle-class kid. And even though I keep reaching for it and reaching for it, it did not come from my kids either. And I'm still reaching for it, and I'm still reaching for it. I can't seem to grasp it. And I will make no apologies for feeling like my voice is at least worth something, even if my pockets ain't. Even if I don't own anything, I own this. And I am going to use it, whether they like it or not. And nobody has to pay me for it. All those people in my comment section, Trump is paying you, white supremacists paying you. I got $15.37 in my bank account right now. And I'm hungry. Nobody is paying me to speak what is real. It is real for me. Don't tell me to get an education. I got it. Don't tell me to get a better job. My job is pretty good. I make pretty good money. I cannot afford this rent. I cannot afford to get back and forth and pay for groceries and everything else. I can't. And even though you on the left and everybody else seems to be having parties at Obama's and Diddy's house with Oprah and the rest of the celebrities, a lot of us over here don't have that privilege. I would appreciate it if y'all didn't come and just rub it in. You look poor. I am poor. You need a better job. I need 2 jobs. Either you help or you keep your highfalutin Democrat business to yourself. I don't think y'all really understand. Clearly, y'all in a whole nother world. Y'all in a whole nother world. Y'all do not understand what's going on out here. But this supply chain is about to be even more jacked up for all those who are looking and watching. be prepared.
Yeah, it's very telling, and I'm noticing it too, particularly from and people like Roland Martin, who continues to try to attack me on Twitter. You know, the Black Boule, it's really pissing me off. Like the people who are, pushing Kamala, like Black Democrats in particular, who are basically calling out other Black people who don't want to just accept what was thrown in front of our face. There is a class divide within the Black community. And it's showing more and more. And I feel like I saw it a little bit during the 2008 housing crisis, but I feel like as I get older, I see it more and more. And there's class divide in, all, racial communities. But you would think that particularly when it comes to Black people, that, we would all be together because we have to deal with, the issues of being Black in this particular in this country. But the reality is there's a class divide among the Black community as well. And some of the Black Boule can be incredibly nasty and, just flat out rude towards lower income Black people. And I understand 100% what that woman is saying and where she's coming from, because the reality is, no, I'm sorry. We weren't going to Diddy parties. We weren't invited we weren't in these spaces with these people and stuff like that. We live in two different worlds. And you can tell we live in two different worlds when you see this policy that Kamala Harris had with Black men. You can tell she don't really know. And I noticed something else too. One more thing I want to point out before Eric comes in. The advertisement for this Black men agenda on Twitter, which she posted, I notice it's different. The wording is a little bit different than what is on her website, because here it says provide 1 million loans that are fully forgivable up to $20K for Black entrepreneurs and others and others. Does everybody catch this? So on her website, it says $20K. On the Twitter advertisement, which she posted, it says up to $20K. Here we go back to the up tos. And on the Twitter advertisement, it says and others. So how is it an agenda that is specifically for Black men for that particular platform? How do you add and others? Because when it comes to policies for other groups, you don't add other people. So I'm just going to say this again to Black people. And look, take it however you want, vote however you want. But the reality is, at some point, you have to take a step back and look and just say, look at how little they think and care about you. Barack Obama didn't have an agenda or a platform for you either. It is 2024. She added you 3 weeks before the election. She is not going to do this. She can't even decide if it's up to $20K or if it's $20K. And this is crumbs anyway. You deserve so much more. And so what I'm trying to get people to do on this show is to realize you deserve so much more. This is bullshit. Why did she put you last? Why were you an afterthought? Why did she put every other group before you? Ask yourself these questions. What a mess. Eric, we have a poll. I'll let you bring up the poll when you get a chance. You want to bring up the poll when you come on to do we got a poll for this one. Yeah.
I forgot about the poll. Yeah, let me set that up.
Yeah, we got a poll. Poll. The poll's the poll. And then we're going to do a call in. I'm going to take a quick break and we'll do call in. It'll have to be a quick call in because I do have a earlier start tomorrow.
There's a comment from Roger. You see Roger's comment?
Oh, hey, I got an idea to give infrastructure.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. So Eric's going to bring up the poll. I'm going to go take a quick break.
Right.
I'll come back and we'll do call in.
Cool. All right, here we go. So this is the part of the show where we give Sabby a little break, and yeah, I was away for a little while. Now we're back. Thanks, Rich, and everyone else for the welcome and kind thoughts. All right, let me see. Let's start off with well, let's show the poll here. Sorry, it just takes a second to set this up. I know I should have done this earlier. I guess I'm rusty, but this is the part of the show where we give our Sabrina a little break, and then we'll be jumping over to the Zoom Hangout, formerly known as Call-In, and that's where we get to hear from you all. Come on, poll. And you can, the cameras are optional. Some people put themselves on camera, which is cool. Some people don't. And you can participate or you can listen in. Here we go. I think I just about got this poll set up. Make sure I get the poll in here too before we post the link. Oh, there it is. All right, here we go. So do a little share on that. The poll. All right, here we go. So tonight's poll was, will Kamala's new plan help her gain black voters? And with 2,755 plus votes and counting, we had yes to that, only 3%, which is not surprising. We had no at 80%. We had the option of it may help her gain a few at 10%. And I'm not sure was at 7%. So thanks for that for participating in the poll. I personally, I said it might help her gain a few just because there's so much propaganda happening, and she is going to get a good amount of the black vote anyway. So maybe it would get a few. But I think the no is also just as good of an answer. And of course, the old I don't know. But anyways, thanks for that. Let's take a look at some of these chats that came in. And all right. Thanks for the super chat, Chris Scott, who says, I appreciate you. The intelligence is oozing. And thanks for that. And Sabby, thanks you. Thanks for the super chat, Sparky, who says, the Secretary of State of the Confederacy, Judah P. Benjamin, was Jewish, but I still don't think that Jill Stein and David Duke are allies. Yeah, I mean, that whole, David Duke thing is, I don't know if he's just dying to try to make himself relevant by doing these endorsements like anybody cares. But I mean, the way the Dems jump on it, it does make you wonder how much of an op, David Duke is at this point. And thanks to the super chat from Cynical, who says, cops are a serious threat to black men. Yep, as well as Kamala. And thanks to the super chat, Sparky, who says, free nacho cheese Doritos for everyone, says Kamala Harris. Probably. Yeah, she would even renege on the nachos, right? And it's that whole thing of, Democrats want you to be happy about the crumbs they give you and, and celebrate. Yay, more crumbs. And thanks for this generous super chat from Blueser, who says, she spent 30 minutes preparing this disingenuous trash, I think talking about Kamala and her latest policy, so-called policy thing. She would have been better off skipping the assignment. It's insulting. And thanks for the super chat, Sugar-Free Mars, who says, I did a commentary on this earlier today and could barely get through explaining the details of this trash, quote unquote, policy. Appalling on every level. Yeah, I mean, and that's how they work it. That's how they work the propaganda and just, trying to make you think they're doing something for you when, neither of these bought off, corrupt, co-opted uniparty, they're both serving the billionaires and not us. Thanks for the super chat, Penny, who says, I was recommending watch Gaza to Cuba live event and panel discussion. Thanks for that. And thanks for the super chat, Chris Scott, who says, black dudes get kicked all the time. We strong, right? Mm-hmm. Thanks for the super sticker, Walter Wilburn. Appreciate that. And thanks for the super chat from Hotspot Casino, who says, last time I checked, didn't the Biden administration already promise to get rid of everybody's student loan debt? What makes people think it's different? Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. How much this backfires. It's always a little tricky because, I think it's important to remember that for the Democrats and really for both parties, winning is really secondary, and their primary objective is to get paid, is to keep the gravy train running. So, sometimes when people say things like, how can they be this dumb, or how can they, do things that are this ridiculous and so forth. I think it's just important to remember that is their first job is to get paid, and just to keep that going. Their first job is not to represent us; it's to represent the billionaires and the huge corporations, military industrial complex. And I think when you keep that in mind, I do think that what they do makes more sense if you keep those things in mind, I think. And let's see, we have another one in here from Cynical, thank you, who says, Dems and Republicans have left the working poor behind. That is for sure. And let me see, I think we had one more out here from Rumble. But let me see if I can bring that up real quick. Yes, here we go. Thank you for the Rumble rant. Big John 32904, who says David Duke used to go on Howard Stern show. It all seemed like an act. Yeah, I think that sounds about right. And let me see here. I saw a comment. I don't want dead air, right? Okay. And thanks for the glad you're back. Appreciate that. And where's your red hat? I took it off for this. Be easy, dude. We can talk about it in the Zoom hangout. I actually bought the red hat while I was while I was away, but that's a whole nother story. But okay, let's see. So yeah, we're going to Zoom hangout soon. Let me see what I had for notes here. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of propaganda out there and to divide us. And one of the things while we were watching the Nina Turner on Breaking Points is that what so many of these people who are not really with us want, they just really want like better Democrats, is like what they seem to like to really want. And so a character like Nina Turner doesn't leave the party, and it's like she's trying to convince us that that's going to happen. And you can't trust anybody who's willing to stay a part of a genocidal party, and that's both of the uniparties. When we had the segment on the woman on CNN who was, I just wanted to express like big kudos to her, because she was calling it out to that anchor. That anchor wanted to say, oh, it's a humanitarian crisis, and she said, no, it's a genocide. And what it made me think of is that sometimes we think about, if we ever got on CNN or Sabby got on CNN, what would we do? And the real kind of fantasy, the great outcome would be like we get on there and we really give it to them, and it might be our only time on there, but we're going to say the truth and give it to them. And that woman pulled it off. She did it. She was on there. She called it like it was, and just laid out the truth on there. So big kudos to her. They'll never have her on again, but but she she had her chance on there, and she, spoke the truth and said her bit. All right.
Yeah.
Get resized.
Okay. All right, guys. So that link for Zoom is pinned to the top of the live chat. So I'm going to go ahead and open it here. And then also the passcode is also there. I usually like to go ahead and just start it, the Zoom room while I'm on the stream. So I can make sure that people can get in, and just mute yourself when you enter the Zoom room there. Make sure people can get in. There we go. Okay, I see people entering. If you want to speak, the way that this works is that you're going to raise your hand icon. So if you go towards the bottom of the screen, you'll see there's an option for reactions. Click on reactions and then click on raise your hand. And that's how we know who wants to speak. Again, everyone just mute yourself when you come in. Yeah. Based. And then we don't want to, again, I do want to make sure we move pretty quickly through the Zoom, just because I do have quite an early start tomorrow. So just make sure.
Sabby's doing it for you.
Yeah, it's a crazy conversation. Okay, and it looks
and
like
you
people
can make me co-host.
Yeah, if you raise your hand, Eric, that'll bring you up to the top of the screen, and then I can see you. It looks like people aren't using the passcode, but if you need the passcode, that is, let me just put it in here. Just put it here.
Sabby Sabs 2 should be set up.
Yeah.
I just did that.
479064, and then save. Okay, and this is the passcode in case you need it to enter the room. And then Eric also has this set up on, where'd you set it up, Eric?
SabbySabs2.com.
SabbySabs2.com.
I'm gonna switch it to that banner.
Yeah, so you can get the link and everything there, and we'll go ahead and there you go. So you can get the Zoom link there. If you're tuning into the live stream a little bit later, sometimes the live chat is not readily available. So if you just go to SabbySabs2.com, you'll be able to get that information for the Zoom there. All right, let's go ahead and dive in, folks. Looks like we already got people in. So let me go ahead and remove this here. And we will go on over to the Zoom. Okay, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. I'll be back live again Thursday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.